Hi, good morning. You're welcome to The Big Issue. Indeed, a happy new year to you. This is our first program for the year, and we are very excited to be back on your radios and on your screens. My name is Selom Adunu. This is The Big Issue. The show is live and interactive as always. You can join us via our WhatsApp line 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996, or 020 444 7033. We'll be happy to share your views with the rest of the world. The new year started on quite an interesting note, opened with Dumsor and now tax on your electricity, a product or something we don't even have enough of. The reason why it has had to be rationed, for the want of a better word. Now you will be paying some extra money on it for VAT. What is government thinking about this particular tax? Does government think that the people are willing to be squeezed further for more money? Indeed, we are told that our tax to revenue, our tax to GDP ratio is not the best. We are one of the poor performers in that arena in the sub-region, and so government needs to rake up some monies or some revenue to ensure that we perform better. And indeed, we are in an IMF program, and the IMF actually wants us to improve our tax to GDP ratio. Is this the best way government can raise money? And what does government think? In the last year or two, we've had huge increases on these utilities. I mean, water and electricity. Now we have an automatic, adjustment of a sort, which happens quarterly. What are the other parameters or indices in the economy? Exchange rate, inflation, etc. All these are not looking good, and further putting pressure on the pockets of ordinary Ghanaians. Now we're going to contend with 15 or is it 22% levy and VAT on electricity. What will be the effect on industry, on ordinary households, etc.? How should government look at it? Should government suspend it? Should government review it? What should government be doing? That is our discussion today. Also, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been doing some work. The MPP goes to the polls on the 27th of January to elect candidates for its constituencies with sitting MPs. That obviously is a big one. One of the candidates for one of the constituencies, the boss of the NIEP, Eric Ofosu Nkansa, was arrested by the Office of the Special Prosecutor for alleged vote buying. It is appearing that he allegedly used money belonging to the organization to support his campaign. He has denied that, but we look at that. Is the OSP biting more than he can chew? Is it within his remit to do so? And indeed, Ghanaians have called for the need to probe sources of income of people who splash money around, maybe politicians and other persons. Is this the beginning of that? Shouldn't Ghanaians really be supporting him? Others have said the style the OSP is using is not the best. What is your verdict? We will look at all of that today. I will take a short break. I will return, introduce my guests, provide some updates, and then we'll get a discussion underway. This is The Big Issue, your platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. Again, my name is Selom Adunu. We are live on our social platforms, or social media platforms, and we'll be right back to give you more. Don't go away. Hi, you're welcome back to The Big Issue, 97.3 Citi FM, and on all our social media platforms as well. This morning, we are looking at two key issues. Ghana's energy sector. The question is, has Dumsor really returned? Government says that they've made some $10 million payment to WAPCO and a few other people, and so supply of gas will now be unimpeded. And what does that mean? This announcement was made a day before yesterday, but as of yesterday and this morning, of course, there are some areas or many areas in the capital and other parts of the country which do not have power. Is it a local problem, a localized problem as they call it, or is it part of the main problem that we refer to as Dumsor, which we have seen from the beginning of the year? The Ministry of Energy says that it has worked on that, and so we should be having uninterrupted supply of power. Also, in the same sector, government is now imposing VAT on electricity. Is this a prudent thing to do given all the economic difficulties that people are facing? You know, there's been a DDEP, people's investments have suffered. Inflation, was at 54%. It's now easing down to around 23%. Exchange rates has not been very good. It's been stabilized a bit. And interest rates have been skyrocketing. All of this in the context of the challenges that individuals are having in the economy. Now we're going to be slapped with some 15% on electricity. Is this a prudent thing to do now that we are facing difficulties? Or the government needs to raise revenue, so anyhow it does it, that is fine. All of this also is in the context of the IMF program. We also look at some MPP primaries news, the case of the Office of the Special Prosecutor and Eric Ofosun-Cancer, who is the NAEP boss, NIEP boss. He was arrested earlier in the week for allegedly vote buying. The Office of the Special Prosecutor says it has information that the gentleman in question, the candidate, uses the money for the organization to support or finance his campaign. We've been calling for governments or for institutions to probe the sources of funding or income of some persons, politicians especially. Is this the beginning of that? And what do you think about it? MPP's Director of Communications has said that he wants the Special Prosecutor to work, but the approach he thinks should be refined a bit. Do you think the same, or you think the Office of the Special Prosecutor is on the right path? We want to hear from you on our WhatsApp line 0549 986 996, and we'll be happy to share those views with the rest of the world. In the meantime, let me provide you some updates of our first story so that we get a discussion underway. Now, major parts of the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions have been experiencing long hours of erratic power cuts, popularly known as Dumsor. According to government through the Ministry of Energy, it was a result of debt owed some power producers, notably the West Africa Gas Pipeline Company, WAPCO. In an interview with the Deputy Minister for Energy, Andrew Japamesa, on the Citi Breakfast Show, he explained that government had settled part of its debt amounting to $10 million, reinforcing commitment to resolve the challenge of the power cuts. The Deputy Minister also assured Ghanaians that no power cuts will be occasioned again, as the matter has been 100% resolved. Meanwhile, in a press release issued by the government through the Ministry of Finance, it has directed the implementation of VAT for electricity consumers who have exceeded their lifeline power consumption effective January 1. The Ghana Revenue Authority has thus been asked to direct the Electricity Company of Ghana and the Northern Electricity Distribution Company to impose the tax. By this, the incidence of the 15% VAT on electricity for consumers in the 31 to 300 tariff category will now be 161.6580 kilowatts hour or per hour, compared to the previous 140.5722 kilowatts per hour. Those within the 301 to 600 bracket will no longer pay 182 pesos for 182.4354 Ghana cedis, but rather 209.8007 pesos per kilowatt hour. Consumers outside the 600 band will also pay something else. The following report has more.
The term Dumsor, meaning on and off in the local parlance, gained popularity during the 2012 to 2016 John Mahama-led administration due to intermittent power outages, causing significant financial losses and impacting the socio-economic discourse. In the 2016 electioneering, the energy sector, particularly electricity supply, became a central messaging point for the New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the National Democratic Congress, NDC.
Dumsor. Dumsor, Dumsor, Dumsor.
Ghana is in reverse gear. We shall interrogate the issues.
I'm Mr. Dumsor, they call me. Dumsor, they call me. Dumsor, they call me.
Despite government rhetoric, citizens remained concerned about resolving the crisis. In spite of touted solutions, communities and businesses still face unexpected blackouts. On January 10, areas like Weja, McCarthy Hill, Malam, and environs experienced unannounced darkness. Ben Kaiser, a printing press manager in Newtown, Accra, expressed frustration over the recent power outages, suggesting a load shedding timetable to help adjust operations.
The light just goes out unannounced, and you have to meet deadlines with the kind of work we do. So it's really affecting us negatively, It's piling a lot of pressure on us, a lot of pressure because we have a lot of jobs we have to print, and it's a problem. If they give us a schedule, then we'll know as in when to work, because we can work overnight.
Our next stop at Alajo, a major commercial area, revealed similar concerns from a cold store attendant.
We are dealing with electricity over here. So when they off it like this, it affects the whole business over here, especially the machine. Because the machine we deal with, it's an electrical something. So when they off it like this, it has to go defrost and on and stuff. So immediately they off it, it affects the machine. So we have to call the engineer from wherever he is to come and take care of it. We are using two-phase. So it's Alajo and Mamobi. So when they off it here, they have to switch it to Mamobi. But yesterday, it was totally off.
Some residents shared their discomfort to Citi News and supported calls for a load shedding timetable.
From last week, we've been experiencing Dumsor, and then the condition here is very bad. Sometimes you are left to sleep in the heat, for days, like 2 days before the light will come back again. And then some of us too, our skin reacts to the heat, causing skin diseases like heat rashes and stuff. And then some too. I think the other day, my soup got spoiled in the fridge, and then I heard my neighbor complaining that his fridge got spoiled because they were turning it on and off. I think at a certain time they announced, telling us that the light will be going off in the morning and then it will come back in the evening around 11 p.m. Yeah, for that one, we were all aware that we won't be having light.
Yesterday, for instance, about 4 times in a row, off and on, and it takes time before it also comes back. Actually, I don't have a business, but it seems the whole place become hot. Even the room temperature rises, so you cannot even stay in your own room because the place is hot. Yesterday, for instance, my child was even sleeping. The time the light went off, before I realized he came out of the room, I didn't know. I realized that the light was off. So I'm of the view that at least a load shedding schedule should be brought out, so we know that maybe at this time you are off, at this time you are on, then you know how to adjust and plan for your day's activities.
Meanwhile, Deputy Energy Minister Andrew Ejapamesa, disputing a return of Dumsor, disclosed a $10 million disbursement to WAPCO for gas supply restoration, aiming to resolve power issues.
The Dumsor, as you and I know it, was a power outage that stretched for in excess of 3 years. In fact, it was 4 years between 2012 and 2016, where because of some pipeline damage from Nigeria, the government at the time couldn't buy alternative liquid fuel to power our pumps largely. And so we slept in darkness for 4 years. What had happened over the past few days is that some obligation owed by GNPC to WAPCO was an issue. WAPCO threatened, GNPC made some initial payments. It wasn't satisfactory. We requested the Ministry of Finance to top up, had to go through some approval process. And as of yesterday evening, following WAPCO's withdrawal of their services, the Ministry of Finance has approved the sum of 10 million to pay for the part of that debt.
Hi, you're welcome back. So that was some report on the Dumsor in Accra and parts of the Ashanti region. To help us with the discussion this morning will be Kojo Poku, Executive Director, Institute for Energy Policies and Research. You remember him? He was a flag bearer aspirant for the New Patriotic Party. But this morning, he's joining the discussion as a technocrat. But we'll get a few words from him as well. Edward Bauer is MP for Bogo and a member of the Energy Committee of Parliament. Alfred Thompson, member of the MPP Communications Team, former Deputy Managing Director of NIB. Francis Timor Boy, who's a tax consultant. Franklin Kujo, as always, President of Imani Africa. These are my guests for this morning. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program. All right, so let me start off with you, Bauer. Of course, your side in Parliament has had cause to raise the alarm that indeed Dumsor is back. We did experience quite a number of erratic power outages, but the government has come out to say that that wasn't Dumsor, so it was a little problem that they needed to solve, and that has been resolved. Indeed, Deputy Energy Minister Japan Mesa says that some money has been paid to WAPCO, and now we'll have uninterrupted supply of power. Can you tell us briefly what, in your view, you think the state of the energy sector is, and whether indeed we are back to the days of Dumsor or not?
Thank you very much. Good morning to my colleague panelists and to yourself and your viewers. Let me first apologize that I'm in up north, and then the weather has taken a very huge toll on me, so I'm losing my voice. But I believe that maybe I'll be audible enough for this discussion.
We pray so.
So let's take it. So as to what is the situation as we have it now, simple and short, the sector is broke. That's all. That's the situation, and I'll explain to you in the course of my discussion. As we speak now, as at yesterday, if you look at our peak demand, it was 3,680. But the available capacity, that means the amount of power that we could supply, even if we decided that we're not going to have a reserve margin or a redundancy, was going to be 3,363, which means that on word go, even with that putting the redundancy there, that was roughly around almost 300 megawatts. If you are supposed to put a redundancy there, it means that you have a deficit of roughly around 500 megawatts. That has to be shared. And so that is the situation. Why are they sharing this load as at now? It is because of the fact that government, or for that matter, the utilities are unable to pay for the fuel that they use. And I'll explain to you. You see, I need to give you a background that it is important for everybody to realize that if you look at the variables that are used in calculating your end user tariff, that means the amount of money you pay per kilowatt hour. The variables include the price of fuel. Indeed, usually they have different, you will see issues like the generating cost, the administrative overhead cost, you have fuel, everything, those things, and they are all pass-through factors. So it means that if I were to go and buy power today for 100 Ghana cedis, part of the 100 Ghana cedis I'm buying, I am paying for the fuel that is being, used in generating the power. So it means that from where it goes, end users pay for the fuel. So the question then is, how come that if we pay for the fuel and on daily basis, people buy power and people's, ECG has to take it and pay the various utilities. How come that we are unable to pay for the fuel? Because the money has been provided anyway by the end users. The reason is simple. The reason is that ECG, as we stand now, is unable to always account for the power they buy and sell. So if you were to say, if ECG was supposed to, in a very perfect situation, so you have a situation where ECG will buy power for 100 Ghana cedis. The expectation is that even with our margins, the expectation is that at least ECG should be able to recover 100 Ghana cedis if, they sold the power. But if you look at ECG as we speak now, in terms of their losses, they are unable to account for a huge number of, power. I just give you just a scenario. As at March 2023, when ECG made a presentation to us about their situation. They gave us a scenario, a trend scenario from 2017 up to 2022. And it was so alarming if you look at the amounts of money ECG is unable to count for. So, for example, if you look, and usually when we are looking at the losses, the system losses, we are looking at technical losses, which is as a result of maybe the equipment. Some of them may be obsolete. If you take the Northern Electrification Company, that's a NETCO, it may not necessarily even be the old equipment, but because of the fact that their lines are long, so technical losses are enhanced because of the length of the wiring. Because you see that in terms of the residential areas and other things, they are very far apart, they are not very near. And the longer the transmitting lines, the higher the losses. So that will be the technical losses. Then you then have what we call commercial losses. This is just this is occasioned as a result of the fact that either people are stealing power, or maybe basically people just use power and they don't pay for it, or ECG is unable to collect them. So that's the commercial losses. If you combine these two factors, as at 2017, I'm just giving you a scenario for you to look. As at 2017, the technical and commercial losses that ECG incurred for 2017, it was 541,609,699.30. In 2018, it was 1,448,803,300. In 2019, it was 697,624,726.80. In 2020, it was 2,126,048,278.58. In 2021, it was 2,255,000. 255,226,826. And in 2022, it was 2,558,009,054.22. It gives you a very clear indication as to how the situation is. Now, anytime ECG has to, go for tariff review, there are always benchmarks that PURC will give them. You know that PURC first will look at the revenue requirement of ECG. And when they look at the revenue requirement of ECG, they then tell you that, look, as a benchmark, your losses should not go. For example, if you look at the PURC benchmark they've given to them for both technical and commercial losses, they are telling them that for anything below 23%, it will be accommodated in the tariff. So it means that anything above 23%, it becomes a liability on the company. So if, for example, ECG, the benchmark 23, and ECG was making a loss of about 24, what it simply means is that for the 23% losses, you and I are paying for those losses. So ECG will only, in terms of their books, will account the liability will just be the 1% that they will be dealing with. But you know something? The truth of the matter is that from 2020, I'm just using 2020. If you use from 2020 up to 2022, because you are yet to get the full picture of 2023 because we just ended the year. If you look at between 2020 to 2022, the system losses, you had a situation where ECG was making a loss of 26.20 in 2022. In 2020, in 2021, it increased to 29.31%. In 2022, it became 30.36%. It gives a fair idea that on a yearly basis, ECG is performing poorly in terms of their system loss. They are not improving, even though the PURC charges them and gives them part of the money that we pay is also for investment. And the investment is to improve on your efficiency and other things. So even though we are paying for ECG to improve their investments, you then have a situation where they are unable to, even improve, and then it's becoming worse. And for just to give you a picture, using the 2022 figures, if ECG were supposed to even just improve their losses by just 1%, so assuming that in 2022, let's say 2023, if they are able to do around 29.63%, what it will mean is that they will be making a gain of almost 100 million Ghana cedis. That tells you how significant it is when you look at the challenges that they have. So because ECG is not able to account for these things, what then happens is that they are unable to pay the other players in the value chain. So they are unable to pay, for example, Greek. They are unable to pay VRA and the IPPs. They are unable to pay fuel suppliers. So, and even they are not able to pay for the current problem that we have that has to do with WAPCO. They are unable to pay fuel transporters because WAPCO transports or transmits gas from the western part of Ghana to the eastern part, that's the eastern enclave, and that's around the Tema and east environs. So they are unable to do those things. A typical example, I just looked at the figures of Gridco. As at 31st December 2023, Gridco had invoiced ECG a total of 1.4 billion Ghana cedis. ECG was only able to pay 23% of that invoice. So it means that around 77% of what ECG was invoiced and money that are due to only Gridco, 77% of it they were not able to pay. So what did that tell you that Bitcoin itself, it will be unable to even run their own operations. The various utilities. The place that is more hit is BUI. Remember that BUI invoices ECG in dollars. And because they invoice them, because the reason why they invoice them in dollars is because we need to repay the loan that we took from China in the construction of the the dam. And so they invoice them in dollars. Anytime we invoice ECG, ECG is only able to meet around 18% of their total invoice. To the extent that in the last 2 months, we had to use bank overdraft to pay their workers. That's how bad it is. They had to use bank overdraft to pay their workers. So if you know what is the situation of the energy sector, particularly at the time when, since 2015 thereabout, when we introduced the Energy Sector Levy Act, that was bringing in money for us to retire our legacy debt and to ensure that we stop the hemorrhage and then make sure that the utilities become financially viable. The situation has become worse. After we have gone to take we issued bonds to the tune of about $10 billion. We have rather made the situation worse. And so if you look at it from that angle, until we decide, we see how we resolve the issue of ECG, all the other players are going to suffer. But let me also correct something. You see, the deputy minister is indicating that one of the reasons why we are having this due is because GNPC could not pay for some WAPCO, and that's why the problem came. It's not true. GNPC, if you look at the arrangement, this had to do basically with the fact that ECG is the one that collects the money that includes the fuel component to it. Now, when the fuel suppliers and the fuel transporter WAPCO was going to have an agreement with ECG, WAPCO realized that ECG did not have very good financials. They could not rely on the balance sheet of ECG to be able to have any financial agreement with them. And so they needed a particular entity that was a bit financially healthy to serve as a guarantee to ECG. And that's how GNPC came in. So GNPC is just simply a guarantor to that. So then when WAPCO then sent the letter, their first letter, they said, you remember we had this shortage, we had this power curtailment, I think a few months back. When WAPCO wrote the letter, they wrote directly to the guarantor because the person who's supposed to be paying the money was not paying. So they wrote to the guarantor and told the guarantor that, look, you owe me such amount of money. However, if you can pay just $8.6 million, I will prevent the curtailment. GNPC decided that, look, I will pay some small portion because the person I'm guaranteeing for is not even making an attempt to pay. Pay that particular amount. Then wrote to ECG that ECG, pay for your liabilities. ECG refused. They wrote to the Minister for Energy. The Minister of Energy did not respond to it. And that was how WAPCO cut it. Until they went and did that negotiation, and from what Mesa, the Deputy Minister, is saying, so they went again and paid some amount of money. They still have a particular portion to pay. WAPCO is a company that has shareholders, including Ghana, and they have to account to their shareholders. And so at the end of the day, they are providing a service and you are not doing. It is not like ECG that, or it's not like VRA that you can force them, even though they simply cannot run based on pure financial terms. They cannot run. For WAPCO, as long as you do not pay them over a period of time, they will have to curtail supply. And so a summary of what I've just said is that we are broke, and this is something that has been brought to us ourselves. We have created it ourselves. And the situation today is worse off than even in 2015 when we introduced the Energy Sector Levy Act.
That's a very grim picture you're painting there. So if the situation today is worse than what we experienced in 2015, 2016, but we've been told that the situation has been resolved now because some $10 million is being paid, then the situation would have been solved now from what we're hearing. And generally as well, the situation has improved for some of the areas, even though a few places continue to suffer this erratic power supply. The situation has improved, but in 2015, 2016, I mean, it lingered on for quite a long time before we saw a resolution of that.
Look, you see, you need to know that the players within the sector is not just the fuel suppliers or maybe the transmitters of the fuel alone. No. As we speak now, based on the figures I gave you in terms of the losses, what it means is that you are going to have shortage in capacity payments. So all the power, now this is just WAPCO saying that, please, I do not want, I will not supply you power. I will not transfer.
Okay, so the point you're making is that there is WAPCO, for example, the IPPs are there. There are other players as well.
The IPPs are there. Other people, yes, who have not really pulled their trigger yet. And so I'm just trying to make the point to you that if you look at the situation, if, for example, you have a situation where just 2022 alone, your losses, you could not account for about 2.something billion Ghana cedis of the total amount of power that you bought. It means that you cannot pay the other players within the sector. So those shortage in capacity payment is also you recall that when the Minister of Finance came to Parliament, and then as part of his changer, you remember the changer motion that was brought to Parliament, he indicated that look, out of the 17.31 billion that they paid, out of that 10.1 billion was paid because for shortage in capacity payments and fuel. And these are things that you and I have already paid for. So consistently, government has to look for billions and billions to resolve those issues. The fact that we still have power on, the question you ask yourself is at what cost? And when the players start pulling the plugs, we will be in serious trouble.
I see. Thanks so much. I'm just hanging there. Let me come to Kojo Poku, who also understands the sector very, very well indeed. He's the Executive Director for the Institute for Energy Policies and Research. Kojo, you're welcome to the program.
Hi,
I think this
my brother, how are you?
Very good. This is one of the very first times we've seen you after you're running for the flag bearership of the MPP. How was that contest really?
Very enlightening, very eye-opening, very informative. I think, as my uncle told me, Kojo, if for nothing at all, you get to travel around the country and meet the people that one day you want to govern. I think when we sit in Accra, in the Kumasi, we are urban dwellers and we're in a small bubble. Traveling around the country 3 times, I've opened my eyes to the plight of a lot of people. I've visited homes and met people that otherwise I wouldn't have. So it was a very good experience, and I think I cherish it very much.
We've always known you as an energy sector person. I didn't know that you nursed an ambition to be president. How long ago did you have that?
I've always had that leadership ambition that if I want to do something, it would have to be in a certain leadership role. A lot of people have always asked me, why not go through the parliamentary route? I don't believe in that route. Parliamentary system in Ghana is heavily whipped, okay? And I don't want to go into a system that is heavily whipped. And because of the way I espouse my opinions and the way I see things, if I'm to go into the parliamentary setup, they'll beat me up. Okay, because I don't think everything should be whipped. We should have the UK system where there are backbenchers and people can be allowed a free vote. We don't do that in Ghana.
Like, you get into that system and change it.
Well, no, that's the point. It will take me, if I get into the presidential system, then I can change it because we run.
The presidential system somewhat too is whipped because the party has its framework you must play within. In fact,
but the party system is different from the government system. Because so the party has a system.
The party will put you
I agree. So if you want to change a lot of things,
listen to the party, because you may want to do something. For example, Nana wanted to do the declaration of assets thing very public and all of that. But when he came in, I said people said no, you can't do it this way.
Because he didn't want to do it. As an executive president, you do if you want to do it.
Next time, if you don't do it,
well, my brother, it is. I was running to be a 4-year term president. I didn't intend to look after my 4 years. What I have done, people will clap and then they will give me another 4 years.
Really? 4 years?
Well, that is what you're given. That is what you're given. It is based on what Ghanaians think that you give it another 4 term. People tend to go into presidency and start looking at the second term. So instead of running the country, you're already running politics. That is not how you govern. When you are governed, you are putting in there as a precedent for everybody. So run the 4 years. After you have governed well, then everybody will say, he's a good president, let's give him another 4 years. But immediately people are running, even before they get in, they are thinking about 8-year terms, so their decisions are skewed towards politics. I don't believe in those systems. And one of the reasons I ran was that I believe in a lot of changes. I think a lot of things should change. The foundation of our politics should change. The constitution should change. The way parliament is set up. A lot of things should change. Because fundamentally, Ghana has not been allowed to grow. Right from independence, the colonial, we came into Kwame Nkrumah. He wasn't there to change a lot. Today, most of our laws are NLC and AFRC.
But it doesn't matter. I mean,
no, it does. It really does.
So, for example, the Evidence Act, for example, is an NRCD decree or act. You know, the principles in there are correct.
If you go to interrogate it by now, I'll give you an example. Your Rent Act is what?
Wait, it's 1960, all right?
Why should our Rent Act be 1960?
No, but if there are changes to be made, those changes Parliament will make. And there's a rent bill before Parliament. Parliament is looking at. So some of the old laws are good. You know, if they have to be amended, Parliament will do that.
Not necessarily.
Or the executive
they would, but are they doing? What I'm saying to you is that as we sit here,
so the fact that some of our laws are AFRC, NRC, they don't really, or it doesn't really matter.
No, what I'm saying is that if you Parliament go and interrogate it,
should be willing, or the executive president should be willing to table an amendment. These days, private members, but the president says he won't assent to it. Right. I mean, the president should be able to table an amendment if that becomes important. So I don't really, you can talk about the constitution, but these other acts or other laws may be necessary. I'm sure later you have...
No, that's fine, but my point I'm making that you're not allowing me to make is that fundamentally, if you are to go and look at our old laws, they existed in a certain domain, in a certain time of age. 2023, see, Ghana will not expire. One of the things that I keep saying is that we shouldn't do things today for today. We should do things today for the next 50 years. Our laws, which are NRC, which was done in 1960, is it fit for the next 60 years? And it's no. So my question is, we should look at most of our laws in our books to bring them to current age for the next 60 years.
Yes, I'm saying that they are doing that. And in fact, the Constitution itself,
those are one of the things that I want to prioritize.
The Constitution itself has a place for what we call this one existing laws. Article 11 of the Constitution has a place for existing laws. You can't just change all the laws at once. Those ones which are inconsistent with the basic law, which is the Constitution, you can go to Supreme Court for a judicial review. It will be dealt with like a lot of other people have done. So those existing laws, I don't really think we have a lot. We can talk about the Constitution and how much power it gives the president, etc. But that's fine. So I'm sure one of the things you also saw was how money influenced politics going around. Because fine message you have, but the people didn't buy into your message.
Well, I don't think it was money that influences. Look, politics is about money. Look, in the United States, if you don't fundraise to a certain amount, you don't even get into the contest. When you see them on the podium doing the debates, your presence in a debate is determined by how much fundraise they set a bar for fundraise. So money across the world influence politics. It's not only in Ghana. You need to move around the country. You need to show that you have logistics. That if you're giving a mandate,
these are two different things.
Let me learn. No, it's not. You need money to be able to do politics.
But you don't need money to buy votes.
Nobody buy votes. Who do you know has bought votes? Do you have evidence to go and give it to the authority that he bought votes?
There are a number of people.
No, there are speculations. Nobody has evidence.
But we have evidence really.
Have you given it to the authority to prosecute
in the last primaries? Of course, the system must go through the system to be pronounced guilty, etc. But in the last primaries of the NPP, for example, we saw people, showing cash 3,000, 4,000 as what they got from the process, and it was on the spot. Not just one, a lot of them.
I don't know about it.
So you are telling me that I know about it. It was on TV.
Well, that's fine.
And but the special prosecutor is looking at that. But because it has not been adjudicated upon. We can
Well,
only treat
for
it
what
as,
you asked
as,
about my
as
experience.
allegations.
My
All right,
experience is that nobody buy votes.
Okay.
My experience is that you need money for politics. It's a simple thing. Logistics. You have to move around the country. Look, there are two things. There are 275 constituencies. When we are doing the super delegate, which I was involved in, you need to go to the regional capital and in some instances ask the constituency chairman to meet you at the regional capital. Some have to travel 3-4 hours to come to the regional capital.
So it only makes sense that you pay.
So you only make sense that if that person comes to the regional capital from his constituency to meet you, you pay his transportation to go back.
Yeah.
That's not vote buying. If you don't want him to come, go to him. It will cost you more. So those things are logistics. It's not vote buying.
But the payment you make for that should be within a certain reasonable
No, well,
context.
that is what it is. But reasonable is determined by an individual. I have money, and my reasonable might not be your reasonable.
No, but we have the objective man.
Well, that's fine, but it's potatoes. Let's not argue on that.
But there's objective man's test. For example, if I took a car from Circle to this place, maybe 10 cities, and you are giving me 500 cities for Circle to Tesano, I mean, that is not reasonable.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Reasonable is we are really
Very
getting
well.
into the rim of.
Very well.
You understand?
It happens we are digressing,
So,
but-
at least, exactly. So, the point I'm making is that you need money. And I have basically gone in there. I, a bit naive, thought that, look, Kojo has the best message. And today they will tell you that all the people that went around, Kojo provide the best message. But there were a lot of factors that they said, look, you are young, we need to groom you. For this contest, let's consider a few people that we think that have been around and served more than you have served. I accept it in grace, and I have basically learnt a lot. I don't think that, as you said, if I go around the system again and I'm supposed to give it a chance, I think I'll do things a bit different and be able to now play my cards right than I did the first time.
So how does the future look for you?
Very bright. I mean, I was the youngest. I mean, I'll be 50 this year. I think, for nothing at all, there is a lot more years ahead of me. I know that if God gives me, look,
So there's
my
something you
uncle,
contest
my uncle Jay is what, 85, and he looks very good, very sound. Everything is well, eyes, ears, everything, right? If God gives me that 85, I have another 35 years ahead of me, so I'll probably be president and be around for a very long time.
Very well. That's nice. So yeah. So let's get back to the subject. I mean, we have to do this because it's one of the first times it's been out again after that contest. But he's on this panel as an energy person. So yeah. So Edward Bauer has given us a comprehensive review of the system as he sees it. What's your verdict on Ghana's energy sector?
The energy sector being broke is not news. Okay? We all, as energy analysts, have always said that we need to move ECG from where it is, state control, to a private sector participation. We had a go at it with PDS. It didn't work so well. It came back. The value chain is indebted. It's nothing new. We ring-fenced that to Ministry of Finance during the PDS era. And in terms of how efficient that system can run, some of us have espoused ideas many times with boundary metering and all that. Aside doing the PSP, you can also do the third last mile concession, where you give where the metering is, which is from the pole to your house. You give that to multiple concessions for companies to manage that, provide a customer service, and you meter that concession. So if ECG sells power of 10 cities to this concessionaire, ECG wants 10 cities back, no qualms, nothing else. We've espoused those ideas, but those are not being done. I hear that the boundary metering is ongoing. But the issue that when people come and say, look, the system is broke, it's been broke from day one. He made a point, and he said that when WAPCO wanted to sign an agreement with ECG, WAPCO didn't sign with ECG because ECG's books were not good. When was that? It was during their time. The system, ECG, was broke. What has happened recently, and some of us, we engage WAPCO, we engage ECG, we engage all these people. For ECG in particular, I'm part of a group called COSECA. Okay, we engage ECG 2-3 times a year in forums to see their books and what they're doing. Unlike the past, when ECG was only making something like 400 million Ghana cedis a year, today ECG's revenue is up between 1.2 billion a month. Sorry, 400 million a month is now up to 1.2 billion a month. The MD of ECG today, because of the computerization and then some work that they have done, he can sit, he has a dashboard, he can tell in real time revenues in districts and regions and stuff like that, and he can see the revenue coming in. So there's a lot that is ongoing. The point is that other factors now come in. when we talk about the recent issue, which has now occasioned this discussion, WAPCO sent a letter to GMPC. This wasn't the first time. It happened in October. And some of us came and said that, look, I think government should pay ECG through the cash waterfall, should pay WAPCO directly. Because when the money goes to ECG, it gets entangled in their internal processes and doesn't go to WAPCO the way it's supposed to. There was a sit down, WAPCO demanded their pound of flesh. That did not happen. Then, in first week of December, a letter was sent from WAPCO to GMPC. GMPC attached that letter and put a letter on top and sent it to Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, that look, there's a $19 million indebtedness. Please pay us, or 2nd of January, we will basically disconnect our pipeline. There was no engagement. After that letter was sent to, all WAPCO wanted was an engagement with GMPC to sit and find out that when can we get the money?
But why wasn't that engagement?
Well, that's something you have to ask GMPC, why there wasn't that engagement. Immediately, ECG got that letter. You see, there is old indebtedness and there's current indebtedness. The cash waterfall only addresses the monthly indebted. So if the cash waterfall, let's say, receives 1 billion this month, it can only pay the bills accrued this month.
Yes. Leaving the old
ones. The old ones, you now have to discuss it with ECG and Ministry of Finance and PULC to find out how is that treated, because obviously it cannot be addressed by the subsequent month of the cash waterfall. GMPC did not do that, okay? But you see, I have a problem with GMPC. GMPC is our national oil company. They have money. Not for nothing at all. They have the GOHL money, okay? The 7% Anadaku shares that we bought. That account receives about $70 million every lifting. So as we speak, they have paid back the 164 million loan that Ministry of Finance gave to GMPC, and they have about $364 million sitting in their account. PIAC reported it in their report. So GMPC is sitting on money.
So are you making the point that because GMPC is sitting on money, it should use its money to pay for?
Well, it's our money. It's Ghanaians' money.
Of course.
Yes. So would you rather we sleep in that?
No, but they also have other things they are doing.
Yes, but what my point is that in the value chain, if everybody says that by internal fund is mine, I have other things I'm going to do, then Ben Asante at Ghana Gas can decide that, look, I'm indebted, I'm old, so I have other things I need to do, so I won't send the gas. Then we'll be in darkness. That's my problem. So the president, for me, and I have said this publicly, should look at some of these CEOs who are not doing what they're supposed to do, and every time we've been in darkness, the CEO of GMPC is not in the country. The October, he was in the country. This one, he wasn't in the country. And I'm saying it publicly, and I'm challenging him to come out and prove otherwise.
So the fact that he was in the country means what?
The fact that in the country, because is that if he was on the seat, okay, if somebody sent you a letter that I'm going to shut my pipeline by January 2nd, and you don't attend to it, and the pipeline actually gets shut, if I'm the president, I'll sack you. Simple. But he's opposed. So what I'm trying to say is that there is challenges in the value chain. The indebtedness has always been there. But what are we trying to achieve as a sector? The CEOs and the state-owned enterprises should be up and doing. We keep saying that ECG doesn't collect enough money. ECG is one of the biggest complaints to the sector as CSOs is that VRA is poaching their big customers. Where they have bulk customers who are big players and big ticket money to ECG, which comes to the cash waterfall, VRA is poaching them. The money VRA makes, where does it go? It doesn't come into the cash waterfall. So the cash waterfall is dwindling.
Where does it go?
It goes to VRA. It stays with VRA. If VRA sells to Newmont and all these companies, it stays, and they export to Benin and Togo, it stays with VRA. Whilst ECG collects money, it comes in the cash waterfall to pay the value chain, including VRA. So we need to address the sector. And that is where some of us are calling for a big review of the sector. One, take ECG to the private participation that we've been talking about. Two, have a look at the CEOs in the various sectors that are not up and doing and will rather let Ghanaians be in darkness than utilize funds available to them. Remove them. If not, Ghanaians will ask for their pound of flesh. You saw the interviews going around where people are complaining. Should it be the case? No, it shouldn't be. So what Mr. Bauer said, partly with the losses, okay? He talks about the 23% loss allowed. But ECG has 19% commercial losses and 10% technical losses, which makes it 29%, as he mentioned. PLC only allowed 23% within the tariff that me and you pay. So 6% is basically going to lose, being lost. But the issue is that for the 10% technical losses, you need to invest in new machinery. You need to buy new equipment to
Which
get
ECG doesn't have
which
the funds
ECG doesn't have the funds to
Very
do.
well. This is the big issue on 97.3 Citi FM. We're looking at Ghana's energy sector, whether Dumsor has returned. Later on in the bullet, in the discussion, we will look at the government's imposition of, or is it the implementation of the VAT on electricity? And we're asking whether it's a prudent thing to do. I'll take a short break. When I return, we will speak to Alfred Thompson, and we'll speak to Francis Timor, and then Franklin Kujo. Then the discussion, of course, the discussion will go on. I'll be right back. Don't go away. All right, you're welcome back. A very warm welcome to our TV guests, TV viewers, and Happy New Year to everybody. This morning, we're looking at two key issues. Ghana's energy sector. We are asking whether Dumsor has returned, and government's implementation of the VAT on electricity, whether it's a prudent thing to do at this time. It's been on the books for a long time. Why are we deciding to implement it at this time of economic difficulties or hardship? Couldn't the government have waited or done something else? People are struggling, and we're going to impose a 15% or is it 22% tax extra on them. Many people think that it's not the right time to do so. It is not prudent in the context of the economic challenges and difficulties we are having. Also, we'll look at the matter of the MPP primaries, the matter of alleged vote buying, and the OSP's arrest of the NEIP boss, Eric Ofosun Cancer. We'll look at all of that this morning. We've been discussing the Dumsor matter, and Edward Bauer, who is one of my guests, member of parliament for Bongo and a member of the Energy Committee of Parliament, made quite a number of points. A major one amongst them is that the sector is broke. Kojo Poku, who is the executive director of the Institute for Energy Policies and Research, says the sector being broke is no news. The sector has been broke since, and that shouldn't be any news. Francis Timoboy is another guest of mine who will speak soon, and Franklin Kujo is also my guest who will speak pretty soon. So let me come to Francis. I mean, you've listened to the discussion. In this discussion, if you're a tax person, the Dumsor, I mean, first of all, what's your thinking around the sector and what we've experienced in the last few days? Government says it's not Dumsor. Opposition says it's Dumsor. I don't know where you ordinary people stand.
Salam, it's quite unfortunate in 2024 we are still battling with the concept called Dumsor. Because when it started some years ago, we thought that with all the policies and the innovations, we should have been able to solve them by now. I mean, we've seen the national energy policy got to a point we said energy sector levy, where all of us started paying. And so the idea was that having been in force for such a long time, we should have been able to raise money to deal with the issues. We're now dealing with automatic adjustments. So it doesn't look like we have a solution. And in a developing country like ours, where power is needed to be able to, power industries, we're still struggling. It's quite unfortunate. And so when the government says, okay, we now want to implement a VAT, I see it as one of those, short-term measures to try to see if it will bring, I call it short-term because energy sector has not delivered the solution we needed. If it was supposed to. I mean, the object of the law was let's collect taxes from everybody. Then we'll be able to use it to defray. Yes, Honorable Bauer has outlined the challenges that we have. There's so much debt, and we are told that there's that production cost and revenue mismatched. So there's always some debt in between. So we need to pay for it. So if the energy sector was supposed to, help us raise some money to deal with such matters, then I think it's quite overdue. We should have been able to deal with it. But again, it didn't work. Automatic adjustment, we don't know how it's going to do. And now we are talking about charging consumers of household electricity with VAT. And for me, it's a concern. And
anyhow, the debt must be paid. But I mean, Bauer and Kojo Poku mentioned technical losses and commercial losses. Main issue with technical losses is that the machines the machines used are a bit obsolete and they need to be changed, etc. The sector obviously needs some investment to change things so that the machines can run more efficiently, so that perhaps we can deal with some of the technical losses.
So
this money must come from somewhere.
So a technical loss maybe is understandable, and I'm expecting that the technical guys should be able to find a solution to that. Things like commercial loss. How long are you going to stay with commercial loss? Theft. So if someone is stealing your goods, or someone is stealing and you don't have a solution to find.
But it's not just, is it the ECG that can solve that? I mean, the local assembly. I mean, it's a lot of things. Somebody is on kiosk somewhere. I mean, the place is very inaccessible. But the person has found a way of tapping power to use, and a whole lot. In some institutions like hospitals, schools, etc., they use power. But these days you can't really disconnect them. All these are losses that they incur, but you can't really recoup them. I don't know how.
That's fine, Solomon. And this thing has gone on for a very long time. Ghana is not the only country using electricity. We have other countries. So does it mean that other countries have not found a solution to this problem? So yes, we put all the problem and go and dump it at the doorstep of ECG. It's an institution that should find a solution to the problems. Otherwise, no matter how, let the IMF come and give you all their money. As long as it's going into the drain, you can't solve the problem. And so, for me, when this VAT was announced, it's still not going to solve our problem.
I see. Great. Franklin, I guess you've been listening to the discussion. Dumsor back, it's not back. I mean, we've paid WAPCO, the sector is broke indeed. Okay, so I understand I don't have Franklin. Franklin will come back. Alfred, so, I mean, you've listened to the discussion. It appears we are not out of the woods. The minister said they've paid WAPCO, but from what we've heard from Kojo and Bauer, it is not just WAPCO. There are other players in the sector who are also owed. They've not just pulled their trigger. Towards the latter part of last year, we saw the IPPs trying to do a similar thing. This is something that somebody also issued a statement saying they were going to shut their plant. In a few minutes afterwards, another statement came saying that they had been spoken to engagement, and so they didn't get to shut their plants. A lot of players in the sector are owed. How is government hoping to deal with this in an efficient manner?
Thank you, Solomon. Good morning to you. Happy New Year to you, to Kojo, to my brother, and everyone listening to us. I haven't been here since New Year, so it's best to wish them Happy New Year, and I wish them a year full of possibilities. It's going to happen, and once you are hopeful, once you are graceful, once you have the mind to do anything is possible for you. So I'll tell them that this year, Dr. Mahmoud Bahami has told us that it's a year of possibilities. When you wake up, put it in your mind, have it in your mind, state it in your mind that it is possible. Yeah. And you can make it possible.
So put it in his mind that it is possible.
Oh yes, he's put it in his mind that it is possible, that he can never come back to power as a president. And so I believe that it is possible. I'm stating from where I'm coming from. Now, when you look at, when you listen to Honorable Bauer, I was glad he went through all these debts and crises and energy and everything. One thing we have done as a government we've come out clearly to state that what happened in the last few days was about financial. We've admitted it. You heard Kojo himself. You heard even Bauer himself stating that it's money issues. We didn't state that, there are some issues and it's not true that it's money issues. Back in the days, when you ask the actual government, NDC government, and you tell them that it was financial issues, they said no, it wasn't. But it ended up showing us that it was financial issues. So it tells us clearly the difference between the two governments. Speak the truth, tell Ghanaians what is happening. That yes, we had financial handicaps or hiccups somewhere, and now we've solved it.
But it was financial. That's how come they brought the S-line, all of that, to help deal with the problems of the sector. It was
now, when he started, you remember Pierre Frank Laporte? When he started talking about all this, I just Googled what he said about all this debt that we've gone into. And he was talking about the mere fact that during the erstwhile NDC times, bad power purchase agreements,
had been signed, and it saddled the nations with huge debts. In 2017 alone, when you go down, it says the finance minister has so far
some of those.
As the finance minister has so far paid over 12 billion Ghana cedis as cost of excess energy capacity charged inherited since 2017. So it tells you that there are certain things that were done wrong. That was why we said we are going to renegotiate some of them, because you can't sit down and be paying 12 billion Ghana cedis every now and then and be paying for something you are not even using. These are the challenges the government of MPP under Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo came to face. But we will not complain about it. We have to work out to make sure that Ghanaians do not suffer. That little thing that they saw those last 3 days, imagine that coming back to us. Because they're coming back of the NDCs, they're coming back of that thing.
Are you sure? But this is not NDC, but
I'm giving you an insight that they should remember some few years ago, about 8 years ago or so, what they went through. 3 days or so of the little light of, and this is not like the light of that went out in 2016, 2015.
No, people had
it could go for 3 days. It could go for 3 days, 4 days, and you have light for just 1 hour. Then it goes off again.
Are you sure?
Oh yes. Or you were not in the country.
I was very much in the country.
You didn't experience that.
I did, but not in the form you are talking about.
It went
3-4 days.
Some people did not even have lights for a week in those days.
No,
and they were complaining. That was when they were talking about Dumsor. And you remember what he himself said. I'm now called Mr. Dumsor. In your own destiny that you were playing, he said it. That I'm now called Mr. He was proud about it. That he's called Mr. Dumsor. But if you are saying that I'm now called Mr. Dumsor, solved what?
He said he solved it. I mean,
I can go to Ofosu Ampofo. I can go to Ofosu Ampofo. The
agreement signed and all of that.
In 2017,
what meant to solve it?
I can go to Ofosu Ampofo in 2017. What he said. He said that if Mahama had been given a second term to come, he would have solved the Dumsor.
But
when we came in 2016,
in the statement he issued before he resigned, he made a point that it had been solved, and indeed it was solved.
But when you listen to the Prime Minister at that time, which Prime Minister are you talking about?
That's not Donko.
When you listen to
before
he resigned, he resigned himself because he couldn't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if
he resigned because he couldn't solve the problem.
He solved it, but he exceeded the 1 year.
How can you solve the problem and work out?
We can pull out the statement he issued before he resigned. He solved it, but he did so a little over 1 year. Also, what extra was done after he left? You know, when we came, he talked about NEDCO and the technical losses. You know, we are changing most of the lines. That was when we were experiencing. It's something that is done periodically, is it not?
Which periodically? If they had done it and we had continued, we wouldn't have been experiencing some of the challenges that we are having, the technical losses. It's something that they didn't do.
But the lines
they had the money for it, but they didn't do it.
The lines have changed every now and then. So the lines have been there forever.
Listen, for a long time, it's not been done.
You change them bit by
for a long time, it's not been done. We came in and we are doing that. You see, it's not a matter of just bringing IPPs on and saying that, oh, let's bring it on. How do we also curb these losses
from the technical people, what Bauer and Kojo have said, the debt in the sector is not new. But I think when you mention Dumsor, it invokes a certain feeling, emotions, etc. Because of how you campaign against Dumsor.
We didn't campaign against it. Ghanaians talked about it.
If Kojo Poku and Bauer know that the debt has always existed, it's always been a systemic problem.
Yeah.
But you took advantage of it and dealt with it that way. Today, if we are feeling the same thing, which is supposed to be systemic, something we are supposed to, which is, he said it's not new, which is not supposed to be new. They also have a right to deal with it the way you dealt with it. Because you said that it will not happen again. But we are seeing symptoms, or we are seeing the real problem showing up again.
When we were campaigning in 2016, we told Ghanaians that it wasn't an IPP problem that they are trying to sign people on, but it was a financial problem. What did they tell us? They said it's not true. You heard it, he heard it, everybody heard it. They told us that it's not true. They lied to Ghanaians. When these few challenges came in, and I'm glad, you know, when he was talking about the letter to ECG, Kojo Poku has come now to say that, listen, the letter was not sent to the minister. It was from GMPC to ECG to pay up what they had to pay. And I don't remember anywhere that we've ever heard that WAPCO has said that, oh, they did not trust ECG, so they had to go to GMPC. That's
No,
never
but
happened.
if ECG is unable to pay, then they go to
you
the
see,
guarantor. Is that not it?
So
But
every
that's how it works.
agreement, financial agreement you sign, definitely there'll be a guarantor.
So if the primary person you sign the agreement with is unable to deal with it, you call on the
And
guarantor.
a guarantor can tell you that come to me directly. I'll pay everything, and I will pick up from the understand. It can also happen that way. So I don't see where the challenge is. GMPC, as he said, needed to pay. They didn't respond within a particular time
The CEO
because
wasn't
at least the best you could do was to write to them that okay, we are working on your payment. We'll give it to you ASAP or by this date. Then all these things could have been resolved, but it's happened. And we are stating to Ghanaians that it is not a Dumsor era, and we will never let them go under that challenge in this country again. And that is why we are working assiduously to make sure that the lines are correct. That is why we are working assiduously to make sure that the losses that you are having have been reduced. And that is why today you say that Kojo has told you that it's moved from 400 to 1.2 billion. We are going to make sure that we get all these collections and pay, and make sure that Ghanaians enjoy what they have to enjoy. And we'll work in the interest of Ghanaians. We will not work in the interest of going to bring on IPPs and make something out of it. That is not why we are there. That is not why we have voted into power. And we'll work and make sure that this challenge that they saw these last few days, they will not experience it next year. Because if you don't know and you go and vote for that wrong thing again, you have yourself to blame. Because they will come and you will tell you that, oh, it's a financial issue, or it's a technical challenge, or it's this and it's that. Like Honorable Bawa is saying nicely. And then they will take us to that era where they will bring more IPDs on, and it will be financial, and we'll go into a Dumsor era. And we don't want to experience that. I don't think they were happy in the last few weeks what they saw or what they felt. And that was just an iota of what happened in 2016 or 2015.
In fact, Mahama, in addressing party supporters in Sugakofe, has said that...
When was that?
I mean, that's a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Has said that government is playing politics with the power crisis, ostensibly to hand over the problem to the next administration, even though the same was resolved under his presidency. That's what he said. So addressing stakeholders meeting in Sugakofe as part of a 2-day tour, he indicated that the country is currently in a deeper mess that Ghanaians were made to believe.
So why didn't he tell us that A, B, C, D is the mess?
And deeper mess. I mean,
no. When you come and you just brush or paint wash things, because there's a 3-day or a problem within the last 3 or 4
not
days.
3 days. I mean, for about 2 weeks. Oh, it wasn't 3 days. Over 2 weeks. I mean,
the light on and off wasn't.
No, but we are in Ghana.
Oh, it wasn't about 2 weeks. Unless, did you experience it for 2 weeks?
This thing that everybody is pushing, lights have always gone.
Yeah, but
on.
The point
no, you see, there's always what we are told is a localized problem. That's fine. But if it is due to the issues we are discussing, then that is what we've known as Dumsor.
Well, we agree, but can I explain something? Dumsor has always been what is mean load shedding.
Yes.
You don't have enough capacity to serve the nation, so some will have light and some will not have light. That is load shedding. Dumsor.
If it's a technical problem, we can understand it differently.
Yes,
right?
but the point is that when you sit in a local, but when we sit in a locality and your light goes off, and immediately Dumsor. You don't pick up the phone to call ECG district office to find out why my light is off, right? I'll give you a typical example. I was in a locality where it was at night. I went through 3 towns and the light in that area was off. And I'm like, how can this area, 3 towns, light is off? So early morning, I called the district and said, my brother, we have been through 3 towns in the night. The area doesn't have light. What's the problem? He said, oh, their budget for clearing the lines, they get 1 budget a year. So they've cleared the lines. Because there was heavy rains last year, the branches and the bushes have grown up again. So the winds have disrupted the lines again. So they've not had the budget to go back and clear. I said, so you are sitting there and you not write to head office to request for extra budget. You understand? Now somebody is sitting there in that village saying it's Dumsor. It's not. So my saying is that I'm not saying that we know of all the problems why at times light goes off.
Yeah, but we are speaking in respect of this particular one.
Which was the 2 days, the last week one.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
that was for 2 days.
Yeah.
But you see, in the conversation, I was on another platform before I got here. There is this pushing of a narrative that since December till now, light has sporadically been going off and it's doing
No,
so.
because we've experienced that too. We've experienced that, and a lot of people have complained about that.
Right,
and it's not just in one area; it's across.
I agree. Light goes off across the country, but my point is that have we ascertained when that light goes off? My concern that I'm trying to say is that I'm not absolving the fact that it could be a technical problem where we are shedding load. I don't know. But everybody sits at home and the minute your light goes off, they don't call the ECG line. They completely assume that it's Dumsor. So that is where my education, small education for Ghanaians, that please don't just think that your light going off is Dumsor. Call if they don't know the ECG line for your district. Me, I'm in the Dodowa district. Yesterday, I got home, one phase was off. Okay, so I called the engineers that I know. They have now turned the engineer's number to a call center number. So when you call, somebody picks up and says, Dodowa fault line, how can I help you? And I told the woman that, oh, I have a phase off. In less than 10 minutes, an engineer called me back that you've reported that your face is off. I directed them into the area and they came to fix it.
Because it's you?
No. How would they know it's me? How would the fault woman know it's me?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying.
No, people also call and you don't
no,
get
but
the
the
same
point,
response.
but you see,
I call too, but I don't get the same response.
maybe the area you live, they are not as.
No, I'm actually in your area. I'm actually in
Dodowa.
The Dodowa area.
You come to Dodowa district.
Yes.
Maybe you don't have the same numbers I have, so I'll share my numbers with you.
Okay, so share with me. So that's the privilege. All right, so this is the big issue on 97.3 Citi FM and also on Citi TV and a few on social media, X, Facebook, etc. We are happy to receive comments from you. This one from Jones Adubo in La says, good morning, Salam. You see, when your mother is dead and you keep lying to everybody she's sleeping, wait until flies start to visit you. This government will defend everything, including the one that is obviously clear to everyone. Thank God JDM has solved all the power problems. Just come and manage to, you can't. This government has totally run out of ideas. Ghanaians are not angry enough, you say. This one from Fosinacha says, good morning, Salam. What is VAT? Value added tax, I guess. If this is correct, what value has been added to the electricity supply and consumption beyond the so determined lifeline for which VAT should be applicable? This is not acceptable and should be stopped, forcing says. All right, so this is so given this VAT discussion, I mean, let's move into the VAT bit. Bauer's line is off and Franklin Kujo's line is also off. We're working to get them back, and I'm sure Bauer will have a few things to say, same as Franklin Kujo. But let's deal with this VAT matter. People think that the time is not appropriate for government to impose or implement this VAT thing. People are suffering. The conditions in the economy are just not right. Small businesses are suffering. Loans from banks attracting huge interest rates, exchange rate issues haven't really been correct. A whole lot of things. Now we are going to be saddled with another thing, 15% or even more. People think it is not just the right thing to do. Francis, I start off from you. Yeah. What's your? I want you to marry your technical view together with maybe your social experience. So in respect of this imposition or implementation of the tax. I'm being careful.
Okay. So first of all, let's separate the two. Mm-hmm. This is not an imposition, or it's not a new imposition. VAT, in principle, applies to almost everything, unless it is exempt. And the law that brings the VAT will list it on the schedule. So if you go to the schedule and you don't find the item there, then we say that it is taxable. In Ghana, our principal VAT started in 1998. In the 1998 law that Parliament passed, Act 546, electricity was made a taxable transaction. However, to take care of the very poor people, the law made it in such a way that the first units, up to I think currently it's around 30 kilowatts, we describe them as lifeline. Yeah. So that lifeline, you don't pay VAT on it if it is for household consumption. For commercial people, they don't have any lifeline. So if you consume more than the lifeline, then the presumption is that you are possibly a wealthy household and therefore you should pay VAT on that. So since 98 all the way through 2013, the current value-added tax that we have, the law has been like that. And every time the minister determines the lifeline, there's not supposed to be VAT on it. However, there has been an implementation problem. So while the law has imposed it, implementation was not forthcoming. And then I mean, Lifeline was around 5 cities. Today, Lifeline is almost 64 cities. And 64 cities, I'm not sure any of us here, 64 cities can take you up to a month. So things have changed. And so people now consume 1,000, 1,005. Yet, because of the failure of the implementation, the law was not, or the VAT was not applied to that excess consumption. So the government now says that all these years we've not been charging VAT on the excess consumption of household electricity. And therefore, let's go back to the law and see how we can apply it. So that if Ceylon consumes, let's say, 1,000 cedis for his household, the first Lifeline, it may not be subject to VAT. And not only VAT. Remember, we have the COVID levy, which is 1%. We have the GET fund, and then here put together is 5%. So in a nutshell, the effective rate is around 22%. So now government says, let's go back and implement the law, which has been in force since 1998. And those very poor households should continue to enjoy the exemption. The question then is it a matter that we put it on the law and we didn't want to implement it, or it was a matter of convenience? Let's not forget that commercial people, for them, they already pay. Today, if you are a manufacturer of something and you receive your bill, whether postpaid or whatever, the VAT is already, and all the levies are included. So is it a matter of convenience? That is why we have failed to implement it all these years, or we're trying to use it to solve some of the financial challenges that we have in the system. Remember, the revenue will go to government. So if the revenue goes to government, what it means is that you are going to pay more. Though the tariff may remain the same, but you're going to pay more. People are arguing that, yes, the law is the law, but the timing is wrong. Others are saying there's no need for you to have a law when you don't intend to implement it. Otherwise, go to Parliament and scrap it. Because we have too many laws in this country which we are not, implementing it. So now let me talk like a consumer. I think the timing may not be right because what is Lifeline in the past is no more a Lifeline today. Those days, if you buy 5 cedis, it can take you for some time. Now, the minimum you can buy should be around 60, 70 cedis to just iron your dress and, just put on the fan. The effect is that if people are going to pay more and it's due to the VAT, then we are rather going to increase the commercial losses. People will find ways to see whether they can tap into the grid without paying for it. Because if I'm paying 500 now, I'm going to pay 22% more. That is going to be too much at a time. Now, if people now find ways to steal power because of the high costs, and don't forget that automatic adjustment is also there, which means that every time it's going to, recalibrate itself. So that is going to create some problem. If people now also go into power planning, which households cannot normally do, because even if industries are doing power planning by doing batch production or making sure that they use their full capacity in the house, I can do more power planning. If I used to have an AC, I have to change it to fan. Maybe if I'm going to sleep, I'll put off the deep freezer. Things that I have to use the microwave, I rather go and put on the cold pot. So all this power planning may affect the revenue of ECG. And let's not forget, the last time I checked the composition of industry versus household consumption, households were about 52% of the power we produce in this country. And if 52% of your customers are going to plan, that may have a negative impact on your revenue. And again, you have already contracted with these power producers that I'm going to pay for the available power, and you are not getting demand for it because people are either stealing or they are planning. Then in the nutshell, you are going to lose. So it's going to have, a rippling effect if we are not careful.
In other words, it may be counterproductive.
It's possible that there could be a counterproductive.
The effect, perhaps, of the implementation is to help ECG raise more revenue.
Correct.
But because of the planning and other things you're talking about, it could become counterproductive.
It could be.
Leaving huge social costs government will have to even deal with.
Exactly. And don't forget, even the industries are now doing power planning. Those who used to run the 24-hour plants now say let's go full capacity. So they produce all they need and then they shut down the plant. Meanwhile, the power is on the grid. You need someone to consume. At the end of the day, you intend to solve a problem by rather creating another problem. So, in my view, I think that this is the main reason why over the years we've not been fully, ready to implement the VAT.
But you think it's a good tax nonetheless?
For me, yes, it's a good tax because this is not only in Ghana. You go to UK.
But I see so in the UK, I think it's 5% or so.
Correct.
But we are saying it's 15 or even 22%, like you just said.
And that is also another problem.
Yes, and in the UK and other places, I think there's a distinction between industry and households.
Correct.
So 5% for households, industry
and then
is
21% for industries.
But in our case, it is flat across, and the effect on the individuals is massive. So, for example, in a compound house, they have 1 meter, 1 man thousand, a lot of people there. And these are the very poor people we are trying to protect, call them lifeline people. But they don't get to benefit from the lifeline arrangement because they use 1 meter. And so they don't. The system doesn't recognize that 1 meter as a lifeline meter, even though the individuals per their very economic situation
they have
will
a
be lifeline people.
Yes.
So they don't get to benefit. So this whole thing about lifeline doesn't really get down to the people, it's just on paper.
You are right. And the lifeline is too small for me, in my view. And today, lifeline is around 64 cities. It's no more a lifeline. And I agree with you. That's why there are proposals that why don't we now distinguish between household consumption and then industry in terms of the rate? We can't apply a standard rate across for everybody.
We don't. In terms of the
VAT, I'm talking about the VAT. So, for example, in UK, 5% for household consumption because it's so essential. You need the power for a lot of things. And then industries can now, do the standard rate. So, why don't you go for, let's say, 5%? Make it flat for everybody. After all, they are your largest consumers. And then you have a standard rate for the industries. That may alleviate the hardship. And again, you have also introduced the automatic adjustment, which is supposed to take care of the other variables. So if you don't combine a reduction in the VAT rate and you are maintaining the automatic adjustment, at the end of the day, consumers are going to be overburdened. And then they will take strategies to avoid paying the tax by power theft. Then ECG power crisis will...
Very well. Let me speak to Franklin Kujo. He's been on for a while. Hello, Franklin. You're welcome to the program. I mean, the first part of the discussion we are done, Dumsor or no Dumsor, a number of things have been said, technical losses, commercial losses. Dumsor, I mean, the debt is not new, like Kojo Poku has said. Now, Dumsor, I mean, the issue of the VAT implementation now, I mean, the law has been there, but the implementation is now occurring. People think that it's not the right time to do so, and so it's not prudent to do the implementation now. But government also needs revenue. I mean, tax to GDP, it's not the best, around 13.9 or 14.1%. We understand it's one of the lowest in the sub-region. IMF wants us to improve that. So if this appears like a low-hanging fruit, why won't government go for it as it's doing now?
Well, good morning to your good self and my good friends on the show. Maybe I need to ask the question whether we've truly turned the corner, because it looks as if some political commentators are saying that we've turned the corner simply because some of the macroeconomic indicators, as we know, seems to have been doing quite well. Inflation obviously leading the down. But you see, when you give with one hand and then you take a little more with the other hand, you haven't really turned the corner. Because clearly the challenges that have dogged this economy are monumental, and we are not going to get out of them until probably 2028. I mean, I'm sure we all know this. So until there's this fundamental shift in the structure of the economy, which would mean that the productive elements of the economy are encouraged to produce without strain coming from these mountains of taxes, you truly haven't really turned the corner. So please, let's put that out there clearly. Because some of the taxes are not going to start having their pernicious effect, really, as we all know. It looks to me, though, I must put this on record. I am pretty sure that the GRA would announce shortly that they probably have reached the 14% GDP tax to GDP mileage or figure. That I'm sure they will, from very veritable information I have. Having said that, it's no excuse to keep on piling a lot of taxes. I mean, someone shared to me. I think I've been looking at some of the data, and it looks as if we have lost count of the number of taxes that we are dealing with right now. And it appears that when government needs extra money, given where we are right now, then it means they have to squeeze a bit more. I mean, how much more can you squeeze from a very tiring or tired man, really? And I don't think it's helpful at all to the economy. So for me, I mean, we can discuss the merit of the tax for it to be probably universal and maybe prevents people from, as it were, not paying the right tax. And indeed, I have heard a lot of the conversations concerning, separating residential users from industrial users. This is not new. These are arguments or conversations that we've had since time immemorial. I suspect that politicians find a nice way of playing games with electricity, very productive things, elements of the economy they play games with. You talk about this and they tell you that during the COVID crisis, you were given free power. Well, I never forced you to give me free power, and I knew it was not going to be free anyway. But if you calculate how much you even get taken back from that free power that you gave me, it looks as if you've taken a lot more. There's a saying that be careful of the government that gives you what you want, because the government that gives you what you want eventually take back whatever he gives you anyway. So I am not in the least happy that we are actually talking about this. And it appears to me that this is not going to be the end of the taxes. Don't be surprised if there's a supplementary budget at some point that the taxes rear its head. And to think that in an election, I think it's important to be very, very, very careful how we want to deal with this economy. I pity the next president of this country because what it means is that you're going to deal with these mountains of taxes and there'll be no briefing room at all, really. So it's not a question about government needs taxes. Question is, government needs what are government's real needs? You recall not long ago, myself, I was part of this bondholders that we put together, and then the Ministry of Finance asked us to come up with strategies we thought could help in rationalizing expenditure and indeed sources of income. After sweating night and day and doing that diligent work, ask me where that paper is, right? We proposed a number of interventions to reduce the hemorrhage that the government has actually been dealing with. We came out with a ballpark figure. We defended it. We co-signed with the Ministry of Finance. Of course, you say that it wasn't an official declaration of whatever, but it was a declaration of intent that, okay, we'll stay by this particular plan. It's been thrown away. If you saw the budget of this year, or if you see the budget of this year, right, the Office of Government Machinery's budget has been ballooned by 100%. Now, that's not somebody who is poor. That's someone who is living like an Arabian prince, but in actual fact, it's an African slave. So for me, I think clearly speaking, I don't think our governments are actually acting the way they think they want everybody else to act. Almost everybody, I'm sure all of you sitting there must have taken a haircut, including my good friend Kojo Popo. Must have taken a haircut. Probably he got a nicer haircut. I got an ugly one. But we are grateful our heads were not chopped off. But the fact of the matter is that whatever we have said have been decimated by the actions of governments. And I think we are in a hole. And I don't think that it helps us. In fact, we are not digging the hole. The hole is being dug for us, and we are getting it in day in and day out. So,
but frankly, I mean, we were told beforehand that the next few years, we're going to be tough, and that in the spirit of burden sharing, we must all chip in a bit to ensure that the country was brought back to its pre-COVID and pre-RU war levels. So this is part of that. We were told, and we more or less not agreed, but we more or less understood what the problems were. So these are symptoms of that warning or that caution which was given to us to burden share. So this is it. Perhaps one day it will be better, and then we'll all be happy for it.
Well, I agreed. I understand we need to burden share, but the person asking you to get up your voice is actually losing his or hers. And it's not the best of thought. And I think this conversation must be front and center of this election as well. Question is, how will the politicians commit to having a leaner administration, a much more targeted administration, not just going around promising things ad infinitum, but essentially what would add value to the economy and reduce this hemorrhaging that we are seeing from the center. I mean, it's a biggest belief, really. I mean, to think that we are even talking about the ECG issues. I mean, I'm a stickler for privatization. I don't mean chronic capitalist arrangements, because that's what we had under PDS. It was a chronic capitalist arrangement. That's why it didn't work, because it was with procurement inspired, but dangerously skewed towards procurement for somebody to benefit.
I see.
Until we have conversations, these things will not go anywhere. I think that, you see, when we say we want to copy the habits of highly effective countries, we should be intent and clever at making sure that where we are right now, everybody is struggling for his or his economy, right? And I think the last thing we want to do is to keep on lying to ourselves that we are running a serious economy. We are not. We are just papering stuff here, a wound here. You go and struggle and do it, then you expose another one. I mean, it's just not right. I don't see how we can run this economy. By the way, this whole thing is not a rocket science to run this country. I've always said it. I mean, how much are you dealing? $77 billion as GDP. That's chicken change for someone's empire somewhere in the world. But they are running and they are organizing their companies much more productive, qualitative, management of their individual companies than a whole nation that thinks that it has resources, and indeed these resources can be dispensed without let or hindrance at any point in time, given whatever interventions that they think should be done. It is just not helpful, you know. So I'm sure there's a broader conversation, but I'm sure that once we brought in the issue of taxes, the taxes have drowned everybody, and I don't think it's fair at all. I mean, the other day, my colleague and myself, right, were in a little restaurants, well, mid-sized restaurants. Everybody goes there, by the way. And then you look at the price, and then you ask yourself, how many people can afford this? What look like a decent meal? And if you're doing that 3 days a week, that's tough, you know. You say the alternative is to cook for yourself, but you see, you go and buy the ingredient, prepare. Everywhere you turn, the tax man is actually waiting for you. To get to a point, I think we will crumble under the deluge of taxes. It is just not fair. For a center-right party, organization, party that says that it prides itself on production, rather than taxation, I think this is much more socialist than I thought. It's more interventionist. It's actually anarcho-socialism. It's what you're dealing with.
I see.
It's unfortunate.
Very well. Let me bring in Bawa, who is back on now. Bawa, yes, the VAT implementation or imposition has been on the books for a very long time. Government says it is time to implement this. Your side hasn't been happy, yourself and a few others. What else could we be doing? We need to raise money to improve our tax to GDP ratio. The IMF is giving us a number of things to do, etc. I mean, what other alternative could we have used for this? And of course, I know you want to respond to a few of the things that Kojo and Alfred have said, but you have very limited time to do that. Hello, Edward. I think your mic is muted. So
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'll just briefly deal with those reactions and come to the tax issue. So first, I used to deal with Kojo Poku as an independent energy sector expert, but I have to deal with him by his name. He's a politician. And so when he says something that is not right, you call him out. First, the WAPCO agreement was never signed under the NDC. It was signed in June 2019. It was the reverse flow, and that was what brought the agreement. So he should check his records right. So that's the first thing. Second point is that, look, yes, we agree that the debt in the energy sector is not new. Indeed, it is for that reason that, if you recall, Boache Jago's vetting, he had stated the total indebtedness the energy sector had, which was 2.4 billion. It was just in line with what Setepe had announced just before NDC went out of power. It was based on that particular level of debt that the Energy Sector Levy Act was formed, that in 5 years we'll be able to retire all the legacy debt, whilst making sure that the current utilities, they run efficiently, not to incur new debt. So that is it. So we all knew that. And this was supposed, if you look at the Energy Sector Levy Act, it was supposed to have a sunset clause that was supposed to just be charged for only 5 years. The Energy Sector Levy Act now is running to about its 9th year. This government has increased the, the sunset clause. It has taken it to almost 10 years. And so if all these years we have been paying this amount of money, and then I'm telling you that on annual basis, we get not less than 10 billion from just the ESLA accruals. So if you look at that and the fact that we still find ourselves in the situation which we find, don't tell me that, oh, the debt has been in our this for all this while. And the last point I just want to make, yes, I agree with him that the cash waterfall mechanism must be operational. The question is, why is it not operational? The ECG unilaterally suspended this. If you recall, the managing director had announced when they were trying to do this revenue recollection, collection of debt and other things from the sector in terms of those who were owing and other things. They had given a target of about 7 billion to collect. They finally ended up getting around 5.31 billion. Ask the ECG, what did they use the 5.31 billion to do? They have not been able to account for it because it was never put in the cash waterfall mechanism pot for them to distribute among the utilities. What did they do with the money? So these are issues that we need to look at.
Very well.
But back to now the
VAT,
major issue. See, you see, if you look basically, you need to look at the issue of the introduction of this VAT in the context of our own situation that we find ourselves. If it is not, Francis is right when he indicates that if you look at VAT is imposed on electricity because there's a value added to it from the production level up to distribution and then other things. So you cannot dispute the fact that it is alien. It is not. But you must also look at it within the context in which we find ourselves. You have a situation where people are really dying from poverty. A situation where the middle class has been wiped out because of a government policy. A situation where people simply cannot make ends meet. Then you introduce a tax that encompasses everybody as flat. Now, you in the electricity sector, because our rates are progressive, so the more you consume, the more you pay per rate. In terms of the rate, you pay more if you consume more. We've always have a lifeline category that was a bit large. In the last two increments, if you study the bands, we have the various bands. We have 1 to 50, 1 to this and that gives us the various categories and the rates you pay. In the last increment, the lifeline band was shrunk. So it means that a lot of people did not again qualify to be considered as lifeline users. And so everybody now pays a bit higher than what, quote unquote, we talk about the lifeline. Now you come and slap VAT on it. For the commercial sector, because it's a pass-through tax, if I am running a business and I use my energy cost is say 10 cedis, then maybe the VAT is going to increase the energy cost to about 12 cedis. That 2 cedis, I am not going to pay for it. I add it as part of my cost, and then it is taken by the end user. So they will have a way of recovering that cost. However, if you come to the residential thing, what it does to you is that if I come and buy electricity for my house here, and I am using it, the effect of it is on my tax, on my wage, my salary. If, for example, I needed to use 10 cedis again to take care of my family, now, in the course of that, I need to look for an extra amount of money to take care of the energy cost of it. So it then brings about, it reduces people's ability to purchase things, the ability to even live a qualitative life. And so it worsens the already existing situation. Now, I hear people say, oh, and Franklin, when he talked about the indicators and other things, and that, for example, you see that our inflation and other figures are now coming down. Let me use the words of the current government. They are moving in the right direction. If they are moving in the right, it still does not change the situation. That I know people always conceive that, oh, if inflation in March, maybe in September was about 50%, and now inflation is around 32%, it means that then it means that things are coming down. No, what it's just telling you is that the rate at which the prices are changing has only reduced, but the prices keep on increasing. It's just that the rate at which they increase, the rate has been reduced. So on daily basis, people's lives get worse. Now, when you begin to increase VAT, it has an impact on inflation, because power or electricity is a major player in the pot used in calculating inflation, and so it becomes a huge factor. So if you factor all these things, and you look at the fact that government, in terms of the recent base pay increment that they are doing, this government has a very funny way of doing things. Whether it is schooling, they will do it double track. It is even base rate, they still do it double track. That they said that they were doing the first increment. I think there was a percentage that was set for between January and June, and another percentage that will be added from July to December. If you take that and you net off inflation, the worker is still worse off. So look, I agree that the next government that will be coming will be in trouble, and that yes, there must be commitments in situations like how do we cut down expenditure, and this is one of the things government has been told many times. But I'm happy that, for example, the NDC has indicated, and John Mahama has said that, hold him to it, that his ministers, deputy ministers and ministers will not go beyond 60, that he can work with that number at the start. And so this is something that the future, government, and I'm going to convince the NDC will win anyway. If the NDC comes, this is what the public must hold NDC to, that we should cut that too. Government is looking, the moment we begin to start increasing tax, it's because we want to have money available for government to use. The truth of the matter is that, go back to the Auditor General's report, you will see that in terms of financial irregularities and other things, my brother, it keeps on increasing on daily basis. We were dealing with figures of around 2 billion thereabout in terms of financial irregularities. As we speak now, we are dealing in the neighborhood of about 15 billion, 16 billion. If government was minded to even just have these financial irregularities, that's about 7 billion. That alone takes care of a huge number of things that we want. Because if you look at the IMF agreement with government, the issue was that they were supposed to increase in terms of revenue, our tax to GDP. We're supposed to increase it by 0.9%. If you calculate, it's about 7 billion. And so if it is about 7 billion, if you look at our GDP and look at our distance, so the 0.9 is about 7 billion. If that is exactly what government was targeting to get, government actually could have done that just by being prudent, just by being very careful, and just by plugging a lot of financial loopholes. That is making Ghana lose and the amount of money we are losing.
Very well.
Look, but just the last point. Look, just a typical example. GRA is supposed to be taxing petroleum products, isn't it? Now, GRA taxing petroleum products, that's one of the major areas and a very sure area of always getting your taxes. We have a situation where NPA has what it takes to monitor the petroleum products and the taxable products from the time it is ordered to the time it reaches even the filling station, through what they call their enterprise relational, that ERDPMS. They have it. They are even hooked up to icons, which GRA operates. Now you have a situation where GRA can sit at their office, just by a click of a button, know the amount of petroleum products that have been brought into the country that are taxable, and how much they can get it. Then you go and bring in another layer. That's what they call the strategic mobilization. Picking up money, huge money. Meanwhile, these people, so I'm just going to tell you how we lose money. And we lose this money.
But I thought, the president is directed that matter be audited, or that arrangement be audited. So how about we wait for the audit report and see.
The fact that the president has already said that they should do that, that does not
justify.
Justify the decision to even defraud Ghanaians the way they are doing. So I'm just trying to tell you.
I'm not sure it's meant to defraud. Maybe it was a good intention to help, assure the revenue.
Maybe you come from a very posh environment, so you know how to choose your words. So let me use my own. So, but what I'm just trying to make you that you see that this is something that is simply immoral.
Very well.
So yes, government needs money, but there are areas in which government can get money. So the increase of VAT, the introduction of VAT on these electricity services, to a very large extent, is going to impoverish Ghanaians. It's going to make Ghanaians look very bad.
Very
That's
well.
all I can say.
Thanks so much, Edward. Let me speak. Let me come to Kojo Poku. You have been in the sector. Many people think that this is regressive. So, for example, when you look at maybe even the building industry, the cement factories, for example, they will have to pay more on electricity. That translates into the cost of building. They build, somebody has to rent, maybe a young person who's completed school wants a single room to rent and work. That will affect how much rent you pay, etc. So even though we are saying we are taxing this lifeline, people are not part, etc., the rippling effect of that is such that everybody in the system gets to pay more, and so raising the cost of living generally of the Ghanaian people. And we've just spoken about ECG requiring more money, the energy sector requiring more money to do better, etc. This money, hopefully, when collected, will be used to do some of these or solve some of these problems. I want you to marry the fact that this generally will inflict hardship on the people and the fact that we also need money for the sector. Where should we be placing the balance?
Well, quickly to respond to my brother Bawa before I let that go. He's a member of parliament.
Yes, he is.
If he thinks that ECG has taken money and can be accounted for,
you should call them.
They have subpoena powers. Call him to parliament and ask. Why are you saying that on Citi FM that nobody knows where that money went? Why are you in parliament? So, look, we as a member of civil society, yes, and calling me politician and His Excellency to you for that matter. You know, the part of the matter is that we tend to kick the can down the line. As a member of parliament, we are all worried if ECG has collected money, be it a politician or not. If they can't account for it, parliament should subpoena Dubik and find out. So please, Mr. Bawa, you and your ranking members can do better by letting us know where that money went, if indeed there is any such issue. Now, to move on to the question you asked, for me, I think that we should step down the VAT issue on a couple of reasons. The timing is wrong. Step it down, the timing is wrong. It's been stepped down, as my brother said, since 1988. I mean,
2013.
1998, yes. It's been stepped down from 1998 till now. So why can't it be stepped down a bit further? Because since the 1st of January, other taxes came into effect from the 2024 budget. Why are we now bent on adding another 22% on electricity?
We just now found that it's low-hanging fruit.
Well, that's fine, but the low-hanging fruit is that, we're coming from challenging times. The only way you boost an economy is if people have what you call disposable income. Disposable income helps to take your country in the right trajectory. If you keep taking away people's disposable income, your economy will go into recession because your productivity doesn't go up, your economy doesn't grow the way you want it to grow. So we need to have people a lot more money to buy things that will boost the economy. Production will now high and industries will hire more. But the fact that there's a point everybody keep missing. This VAT on electricity is not for the sector. In the letter I saw, it did not mention that the VAT on electricity was to collect money for the sector. No, it was to collect money for GRA to go into the consolidated fund so that it will be used as any tax. So that is the correction I think we should make, because even when I spoke on Joy, their narration of what I said was that, the money is to help the sector. But I don't see it in the letter that was sent from Ministry of Finance.
Maybe to help government pay for it debts.
Yes. Well, that's fine, but it's a general debt. It's not the energy sector.
So your point is it may not be applied to the energy sector necessarily.
It
applies to
the
general
consolidated fund. Yes. I know that now, because of the problem in the sector, the Ministry of Finance is contributing something like 10 million every month on top of what the commitment for the ECG cash waterfall. Ministry of Finance is adding 10 million a month to the waterfall to meet the commitment of the SOEs. Okay, but you see, we talked about something, and Franklin, I think, mentioned that, or I think my brother here mentioned that it will be counterproductive in introducing the VAT now. Why is that? In the Western world, industry pay less and residential pay more. In Ghana, it was the reverse, or it is the reverse, where industry pay more and residential pay less.
I think Franklin wanted to just make a quick intervention before. Franklin?
What about my haircut?
Franklin, are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Yes.
I was just trying to point out to my good friend Kojo that irrespective of who is receiving the money, whether GRA or the Ministry of Finance, it's still a taxable. So it's not really the
No,
point.
no,
The point
frankly,
is,
I was just correcting the fact that people are attributing the fact that the VAT on electricity is to improve the indebtedness in the sector. And I'm saying that it is a tax going to consolidated fund. It's not for the sector. Okay,
All
if
right.
they want to raise money for the sector, then they should increase tariffs, which will now deal with the sector problems. But the issue I was making was that in the Western world, industries pay less, residential pay more. That is how you increase productivity. Now, in Ghana, it was the reverse where industry pay more and residential pay less. We've had a policy in the last 3-4 years that we want to reverse that. So if you look at the PULC major tariff review, I think in 2022, that was being changed, where residential was a bit more and then industry came down. But now, if you go and put VAT on the residential, it now makes the residential customer overburdened. So you cannot push the tariff any higher.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that will really go against the spirit of that policy. So again, we should look at, like my brother said, if we are to look at the two-tier system in VAT, where we have a specific, a special amount, like they have in the UK, a special rate for electricity, then that would be better. But at 21%, they are not doing. I honestly think
a lot of people.
Yes, no, I honestly,
Jackson,
I honestly think that
it
should be stepped. Very, very. So look, we need to mobilize revenue. As the next line of your question is, we need to mobilize revenue. Yes, and I wrote something over a couple of days, and my brother Franklin called me up on it. Like, look, taxes is a way that the country runs. And you made a point that interest rate is high. In fact, if you collect more taxes, it brings down interest rate than borrowing, because borrowing increases interest rates. So taxation is a good thing, but you don't pile it on at once. That is, it becomes counterproductive. So over a period, yes, we've introduced a lot of taxes, but it's a necessary evil. If you don't raise taxes, your option is to borrow. And borrowing devalue our currency and increase interest rates, and is more counterproductive than taxation. Because in the long run, the country needs money. And that money has to come from the citizenry, but it is the timing and when and how.
Is it not curious to you that, of course, we keep talking about taxes, raising taxes, etc., but government itself, executive government itself, appears not to be concerned about rationalizing its expenditure.
Yes, that's a key.
And that is, we've not seen anything.
It's a big problem. I've spoken against it. I have spoken, in my campaign trail, I spoke against it that, look, we have two sides of the equation, the expenditure and the revenue. If the revenue, and it's amazing how when we read the budget, right, we now know that the maximum achievable revenue is, let's say, 79 million. But we now project 104, only to put the expenditure at 150 so that it doesn't look awkward, right? Meanwhile, we know that our achievable, the possible achievable from the previous year is only 79 million. Why are you talking about 120 million? So I'm saying that, look, I have spoken against the big appetite for big infrastructure. But maybe if we are also getting to the point where Ghanaians are asking for more. It's up to the government to balance the scale to now look like Ghanaians have an appetite for big development. Do I give them all they want at once and as a result borrow more and all the problems that we are in now, which is the downside of that? Or be judicious on how much I borrow, keep my expenditure low so that the revenue side doesn't have to be on turbocharge. So yes, everybody is saying that instead of increasing to now raise revenue, let's also look at the expenditure side to also bring it down. But then the question is that Ghanaians should now temper their expectations. That dual carriage road you're expecting, that big building you're expecting to be built, all those things is because government doesn't have money. And if we don't borrow, okay, you go to some African countries, they have A+ ratings, but the development in that country is not as Ghana. You understand? But their currency is big, their economy is huge, they have A+ rating. But they don't want.
They're not taking the risk, the borrowing risk. They're not doing that.
Exactly. So that's the education Ghanaians have to juggle with.
I see. Alfred, the MPP, proud to come into office, made a lot of promises. Scrap taxes, they call them nuisance taxes. Scrap what they call nuisance taxes, and they did do some of those things. the very small market tools and things. Sky, I mean, they did those ones quite insignificant. But to those groups, but people think that they were quite insignificant. Now, so I'm just looking at your manifesto, for example. Is it page 17? Shifting the focus of economic management from taxation to production. Such a big headline.
Yeah.
You know, it says that the mismanagement of the economy under the Mahama-led government, you know, has resulted in an increase in taxes on virtually everything taxable. Everything taxable. This has increased the burden on the private sector and has become a disincentive for production. To address this challenge, MPP will shift the focus of economic management or policy away from taxation to production by reducing the number of taxes, so reducing the corporate tax from 25 to 20. I'm not sure that has been done. Removing import duties. I mean, a lot of things were said. But now we've seen a new raft of taxes. You know, some you said, you know, were inevitable. Others too, we think could have been done better. So we have COVID levy, for example. Even though we said there's no more COVID, we have e-levy, which is struggling, but we are unwilling to do away with those. Now we are going into an implementation of VAT on an essential commodity or thing like electricity. And that is going to have an effect on everybody and everything. You know, the people are suffocating. But taxation to production, the shift, it appears.
I mean, we still, I'll tell you the truth, we still stand on the notion that we need to move the economy from taxation to production. That is there.
Yeah, so you're saying,
I mean, we are not changing our.
Yeah, everybody knows that. Everybody knows.
It's not everybody.
No, everybody knows that in the end, I mean, we need to shift focus from taxation to production. But how to realize that is the issue.
You see, when we came into office, when you check the first few years, we were doing very well till we had all these challenges. I won't mention COVID. We had all these challenges.
But you should, because it was a pandemic.
I mean, I see, it wasn't only COVID. You know, the world itself went into an economic global crunch. And almost every economy suffered in one direction or another, which we have to admit. But let's take Ghana into perspective. Seriously speaking, we have to sit down and look at our whole economy. We have to reshape our economy, because I see us as moving, you know, it's like the way British colonized us, we're still moving in that direction.
Got this better economy
when you go there into Britain, everything is about taxation. But like Nanado said, we have so much resources that we need to turn it around and make sure that we make money out of it to pay most of our debts off and to ease the pain of every Ghanaian. To tell you the truth, it wouldn't take one day. It wouldn't take 1 year or 2 years. But we would have to suffer to gain. At the moment, we are in challenges, we are suffering for it. But I believe that when there is a continuum of what we've started, and we ran it very well under the next leadership, I can tell you that in the next 4 to 8 years, we will see that change, that rapid change that we want to experience, even with all the challenges going on. Because you realize that most of the things by 2026 to 2028, it's really going to ease down from all these burdens that we are experiencing. But you need someone who understands and appreciates the economy to drive that. And that is what we need for the next phase. We don't really need someone who will come and tell you that, oh, I've learned my mistakes, I've experienced all these things, and I can tell you on authority that I'm going to change things. I mean, it's not by mere word of mouth.
No, but someone who was sold as the economic messiah, is on the seat.
He's not on the seat.
No, I mean he's the chairman of the economic management team. So that's
which is an advisory body. You keep on forgetting
that
economic management team is an advisory. I can sit here. You can take me as an advisor to you.
No problem. I didn't sell him out as the economic whiskey. As a man to come and correct the economic mismanagement.
We didn't say he was going to correct it.
No, he was going to deal with it. The economic mismanagement of the Mahama regime. Yeah. We said it.
We didn't say he was going to deal with it. We said we are bringing him to help us change things.
Okay, so the help. So if that is the help,
so when he's coming,
if that's the help he was to offer, and it's become worse, then we need to question
what has become worse.
The economy of the.
So ask yourself that: where were we? What happened and how did it go? We cannot blame this government for what
everybody knew that the economy in 2017 was going to be better than 2016. So if the economy in 2017,
who knew?
Of course, I knew.
Have you forgotten that? Have you forgotten that the current at that time the then president? I'm coming. The then president told us that Yari Namnaka don't pay.
No, that was something else.
It was what else?
2 oil wells came on stream. Mahama didn't have that. A number of things.
The oil
happened.
wells.
And
no,
in fact,
seriously speaking, the oil wells. How much did we, as a
the
government,
World Bank
get it?
And the IMF and all those Bretton Woods Western institutions had said that 2017 was going to be a better year for Ghana than 2016. That is on record. So if in 2017 a new government comes with its goodwill and everything, comes and the economy is better in terms of the figures, we need to see what will happen in the next few years. And we had also said already that Ghana's economy was as if it was on steroids. Okay, there were real underlying challenges. So COVID and co just came to expose that. That's why we are here. COVID, you've said, affected a lot of countries. But how many countries are going through what we are going through today? How many countries have
some
had
other
haircuts?
countries are going
How
worse.
many countries are suffering the way we are? Everybody's suffering. That's correct. But it is the degree or the extent of how people suffer. Look at our situation. Automatic adjustment tariffs. Now we are having 15% or 22% of VAT. Interest rate is in the sky. I mean, we are suffocating, but income levels have not increased.
And that is why I said that
So-
we have
so
to
not
sit down.
everybody in the
And that is
world
why
is suffering this, even though we all suffered COVID.
I stated at the beginning that as a country, you have to sit down and look at the whole economy.
Yes.
And how we need to reshape it and replan
Yes,
it.
but to
because
be,
you know
to
we
be saying
keep on,
that and also be pushing for someone whose job it is to advise
like-
on how we do it,
No,
and he is a
listen.
key player in the seed. That
You see, one thing you are forgetting.
Can I put on my political hat
Yeah.
and help a little, please?
But you're as an energy expert.
Let me come in 1 minute. Let me come in.
But we need to
Look,
move to the next
in
step.
2017,
Yeah,
when
we'll go
IMF, let's not forget that.
Yeah.
There were underlying problems coming in from the 2012-2016 administration. That's what took us to IMF. When we came out of IMF in 2018, the challenge which sits at the Ministry of Finance is the projected revenue and all the things that we had now taken ourselves into. So you remember the first bond that we went to and the monies that came in and all that, right? Now, if Ghana had not, and the world has not gone through the pandemic in 2021, we would not be having the conversation we're having today. And let me explain why. If you now look at your forward projections of what you intend to do, I'm going to borrow X, and in the next 3 years, as I'm coming out of the IMF, these are my programs and these are the things I'm going to do. Then you come out of IMF in 2019, and then you go on a roadshow. When COVID came, we had gone on a roadshow in February. Okay, so even the program that we intended to use the money for that year, we couldn't do because most of that money were basically kicked into the pandemic.
But you also realize that we got a lot of money.
We agree. We agree all that. We got money. We had raised money on the roadshow. We've gone to the bond market early that year. We've gotten money because of the COVID. But the problem is that fundamentally, the world economy had changed. So with your projections that you are going to run your country, anytime we have the budget, we have the local outlook and the international outlook.
But the point I'm making is that we even mismanage those funds.
Well, that's fine. But we saw the special audit report. Hold on, I was going to say something. Let me land, please, then you can deal with them. What I'm saying is that we tend to forget that if somebody had, as a business, if I have my forecast, first year, second year, third year forecast, right? And I'm given a certain amount of money to run to achieve those forecasts. But there is a major pandemic, okay? Even in a contractual agreement, I'm allowed to use as force majeure, right? It tells you that whatever I have projected to do falls out of whack. That is the point I want everybody to make, that whatever comes after, we shouldn't hold the Dr. Bawumia or the MPP government to that strict that, look, you borrowed this money, and this didn't happen. Let's look at what pertained. Okay? 2021, 2022, 2023. We still are not out of the woods. Franklin wants to say something.
Yeah, Franklin.
He will tell you that
You know, let's not make this conversation a lesson in economic history. Because if we want to do, there's a lot that comes.
And then we won't close today. Maybe the second issue.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it.
All right. So just conclude.
No, I think he wanted to say something before.
So
just to come back to this, and let me tell you the truth. Everybody, nobody enjoys paying taxes. And I would say on authority and plead that, listen, this 1998 approval of this tax that has not been run should not go ahead. It will not help us.
But from where you sit, do you think that this will, it will be suspended?
Listen, I believe that they'll look at it again. It will be looked at. I believe that.
But for that, needs money. You can need money.
You see, the truth is that as much as you need money, you also look at other things. It will let every price change in the market. Everything.
Yes.
Because once electricity goes up,
everything goes up.
Everything goes up. Everything. Transport. Recently, I'm putting up something. I'm doing some small projects for someone, and I was going to buy cement. It was 90 cedis. The day I was going to pay, that was a day later or a day, about 2 days later, I was going to pay for it. They said 95. And I said, what has changed? And you see, they now negotiated. They now negotiated with me for me to buy it at 92. And I asked that, you see, you do all these things and you blame the government. But when you also introduce some of these things, you force people, instead of maybe adding, let's say, 1 cedi to it, they'll go and add 5 cedis.
They went for loan
because they have to also pay their distance off. And so I'll plead as much as possible that, listen, let us look at it, because we always, and from the time I was a child, they've always been saying that we keep on trying to pay workers, and workers to try and work for the government. That type of magician type of thing. We cannot continue that way.
Very well.
We need to sit down and look at the whole economy and let us put things in the right perspective and know that let us suffer now and gain in the next 10, 20 years so that our people or our children will come and take over in the right direction.
Very final.
Alfred, what exactly are you saying?
You know, he's saying that everybody should come on board and let things work better. I mean, have I summarized right?
So
very finally, I mean, yes. the taxes, what should we do?
I think the biggest problem sits with ECG.
Okay.
And therefore we'll rely on them to reduce the losses. Again, the lifeline, I think that it has changed. We want it enhanced. If government wants to maintain the taxes on, electricity, I'm thinking that we should have a separate rate. Yes, we should expand the lifeline, but we should have separate.
How many people on lifeline? About 1 million people, I understand. About 1 million.
It depends. And you see, there's a point I was going to make. The lifeline also is now inclusive. The way it's calculated has changed. Before, it was exclusive. Yeah. So if you are within and you now go over, you are still given that lifeline and calculated from. Now, the inclusive means that if you are, let's say, a lifeline and you use 0 to 30, if you just go 1 point above, the system recalculates it and give you the next band, which is is tricky now how it's calculated. So I think PLC should, if they're going to even look at the tax on there, should go back to the exclusive where you are given that 30, then anything above that is charged separately. If not, it's going to create a problem.
So just to conclude my point, we should have separate tax rates.
Okay.
Residential should at least come to about 5%, and then we allow the industry to remain where it is. And then again, the timing, I think that I agree with
a quick one. You mentioned something about this, why it's a flat thing and all. Now people are using their residential properties into commercial properties. Now
but
where
the meters
my brother, it's very difficult. All right, you go there and you realize that they have challenges.
Very well.
Because you send people to the field, they'll go and put, they see it's that the person is building stores, and they'll put residential.
But when the residential was to be cheaper, so when the commercial was to be more expensive, people will now go back and get to residential.
But making commercial to more expensive also hurts industry.
No, I'm saying that's why we are reducing commercial to be cheaper. Yeah. So there's no incentive for you to have a commercial meter, but have a residential.
All right. Meter. So we take a short break. This is how we're done with the issue of the ECG taxes and then energy sector. Now we move into the issue of the MPP primaries, the OSP, and the National Entrepreneurial and Innovation Program NEIP boss Kofi Ofosun Cancer's arrest and matters arising. This is the big issue. Martin Pebu joins the discussion after this break. Don't go away. You're welcome back to the big issue. We look at the second issue, which really is a matter of the MPP primaries and matters arising. Now, earlier in the week, the Office of the Special Prosecutor arrested Kofi Ofosun Cancer, who is a candidate in the Asante Achim Central constituency, and also the chief executive of the National Entrepreneurial and Innovation Program, NEIP, because according to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the gentleman was using official funds or funds for the NIEP to support his campaign, a claim that he has refuted though. But that is the matter. The Office of the Special Prosecutor is now seeking to investigate his sources of income, whether indeed he used the official sources of money to fund his campaign. He has said that that is not true. The people that he gave money to were young people who were starting businesses, etc. And you know about this You Start program. That is what he was doing. So he was well within his rights as the chief executive of that institution to do what he did. The election is on the 27th. I don't know how that will affect it. Sometimes these things make you more popular and you win. Other times, they don't help you. But I want to look at it from the legal point of view, whether indeed the office of the special prosecutor was well within his rights to do so, whether that is the way we should be going as Ghanaians and institutions of state set up to make corruption an expensive venture, like the special prosecutor himself said when he was being vetted and all of that. Joining us on this segment is Martin Pebu, who is a celebrated legal practitioner. He's a very celebrated legal practitioner, and we all benefit from his expertise. Franklin Kujo is still on, President Imani Africa. Alfred Thompson is still a member of the MPP communications team and also former Deputy Managing Director for NIB. Kojo Poku, Executive Director for Institute of Energy Policies and Research. This one for this show is expired, but he's I mean, he's a good man. He contested to be the flag bearer for the MPP, facing off with Baumia and Co. He's also on the panel. So, gentlemen, again, you're welcome. Martin, big welcome to you. So now, Office of the Special Prosecutor. I know we've all had our issues every now and then with that office, which is very normal. This new move, going after the appointee of the president at the NEIP, what do you know about it? And then how do you think, others have said that his mode of operation should be a bit refined. But what do you know about the case, first of all? And is it within his right to do what he did?
Well, the thing is that corruption has cost us so much, so much. So in the analysis, let's be careful this way, or let's be eager to make the point that any attempt that is made to nip corruption in the, it's not actually in the bad. Corruption has really taken this nation. Yeah, it's grown. It's no longer in the bad. Any attempt to help stem the tide of corruption is welcome. So now, let's zero in on the OSP. What did OSP see? That Mr. Nkansa was doing momo, right, to certain delegates. That's why it's alleged. And so OSP caught wind of it and had him arrested in order to pursue further investigations into the matter, right? So at this juncture, it's difficult to say that he's not within his remit. Let's mention so let's just go straight for the jugular. There's a certain legal impediment, all right? But let's discuss it. So this is what it is. In the past, straight, there's a case called the Republic versus Yevi and Avalifo, right? So in that particular case, what I'm about to narrate is that the question is whether in matters involving MPP primaries are matters that can be said to be corruption within Section 239 of the Constitution, of the Criminal Offences Act, Act 29. That's the question I'm trying to answer. You see, now, in Yebi versus Avalifo, what the Supreme Court looked at was, and that's the case involving the money under Obeda Samuel's bed. The Supreme Court looked at it and did so many analyses and came to the conclusion that, look, a political party is an institution or an organization, okay, that is largely public in nature. Because you see the millions of people who form a political party or support and, or are affiliates of that party, right? So they looked at it and said, so because of these millions of people involved, anything that affects the political party, all right, affects the public interest. So they did that analysis and said, then the public tribunal, that was the court whose jurisdiction was being challenged. When we say jurisdiction, that's the authority to go into the case. So that court whose authority to go into the case was being challenged was declared to have the authority to go into that case. Because when the policemen, so Avalifo were policemen who were guarding Obeda Samuel's house, and when that money got lost, they say that they stole it. And then when the matter went to court, they raised the objection that that particular court they were taken to cannot go, doesn't have authority to go into that case. And so from the court there, the regional tribunal there, the matter was taken to the Supreme Court for interpretation. And as I said, so that interpretation that matters affecting the political party are matters that affect the public interest, and so the court can go into it. It's likely to persuade a judge in the matter that the OSP is seized with. Yes, and I remember until Kise Jabin took this step, I remember we were on some private pages where Samson Ladi Ayenide, he's been vociferous about it, that no, OSP should be able to, and lo and behold, OSP is doing it. You have other lawyers on the other side who don't think so. You find notable among them, Ace and Kuma, etc., right? Yes, I belong to that school of thought, but suddenly, then I remember
which school of thought that he should be able to, or
no,
he shouldn't?
Initially, I thought that he shouldn't be able to because of Article 19, Clause 11, that for a criminal offense, it should be properly defined, you see, because it's an MPP primary. So I expected law like, during a party primary, if you do X, Y, Z, because the main law we are using, the representation of people's law, is for parliamentary elections. And then later, we amended it so it can cover presidential, right? So it's limited in nature. That's on the face of it, right? And then this corruption. So the thing is that it's an MPP election, a public election. So when you are using pure corruption under Section 239, is it a public election? Because you and I, are you a delegate? Okay, primary, you're a delegate because of your position. Yes, a flag bearer, contender, etc. But I can't go and vote there. Selim, you can't vote there. You see, so it's not open to the public. That's if you are using the definition of what is public, because generally something is public where the larger majority are allowed to go in and come out. So if a building is public, we all can go in and come out freely without major restrictions, etc. So public elections too, like the parliamentary elections, open to the general Ghanaian populace, presidential, of course, those who qualify, right? So using those analysis, you tend to think that, oh no, there has to be specific law on party primaries. But as I've said, with hindsight, looking at the Avalifo case, yes, I'll switch and come and support. Because, you see, like we said, corruption is eating up this society. There is so much money in Ghana to take very good care of all of us. But each time, we allow politicians to come in and, like Kennedy Japan would say, they steal, like the way he says currently, Mr. Thompson's people are stealing our money and stashing abroad. You see, stealing our money and stashing abroad. Yeah, I didn't say so. It's Kennedy Japan who said it. So the problem is that today, yes, of course, I used to support you guys. I'm sure those in 2016, I supported Nanado more than anybody. I didn't know, Charlie, he'll turn out to be this shambolic.
No, you need your party.
So say it. Your party. Your party. Okay, good. Yes, so now I support the move by the OSP. Yes, it's good it's making an attempt. So I'm sure when they get there, that will be the first question they will answer. Any lawyer in this arena will be looking for jurisdiction. Hey, as soon as you go to court, that's the first thing a lawyer wants to say. But this court crack, and the court go into it. So this Avalifo case, Selim, you're a lawyer, so you know it. That when you go to law school, there's no way you leave law school without reading that case. So when they go to court, it will be raised. Let them deal with it. And you see, I even believe that, look, listen, even if in the unlikely event, even if OSP were to lose that jurisdictional question in the High Court, I will encourage that they should go on appeal. Let's go. You see right now, you see what is done. The fact that he's arrested with some cancer, it has a signaling effect. So people will go underground. Yes, you know, when they do it in their bedrooms and the rest, that one is always been there, even from Kwame Nkrumah's time. But the good thing is that it will no longer be so brazen. So all I'm admitting is that, yes, there's a limit to which you can fight corruption. But let's take it one day at a time. Yeah, so by all means, OSP should go on. If they get to court, the jurisdictional issue will be raised, most likely. And depending on how the court answers it, they should go on until they exhaust all the appeals. Because you know what? Mr. Kojopuku, your people are not willing at this time to pass a specific law to expressly cover party primaries. So if that will not happen, let's use the route of what? Court decisions. So if the High Court were to say, no, they will not, this case is a party primary. A party primary is not a public election. So the laws in the Act 29 don't apply. Corruption, and then the corruption at public election and those things, then the representation of people's law, they don't apply. Go on appeal to the Court of Appeal. From there to Supreme Court. You see, apart from being in court, you know, when the case is in court, Salom, you make it a topic for discussion here. So as we discuss, then we are preaching. We are conscientizing ourselves that let's stop. How did America get here? How did Britain get here? It's not that corruption doesn't exist there. They are still also very corrupt, but they fought it. It's done very secretly now. It's very secretive. And in the process too, their societies have progressed. So for me, look, it doesn't matter if the court doesn't think there's jurisdiction. It doesn't matter. Just go on appeal. Keep going till we hit the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court finally answers. Then we will know. And then, as I mentioned, just like you see the way when it comes to the Code of Conduct for Public Officers, you know, so straight away, the Declaration of Assets Law. You see how Occupy Ghana was giving Akufo-Addo pressure all the previous years. And last year, finally, Akufo-Addo said, no. His government is not interested in passing that law, the bill. They are throwing it away. And then, you know what happened? Of all the unlikeliest of places, the IMF, when we went to IMF put passage of the Code of Conduct law as an IMF conditionality. So you see that. So my point is that as a society, we kept discussing it. So it's something, right now, it's our number one request in time, because, you know, as for constitutional amendments, it's clear that Akufo-Addo has taken us back 2 decades because he's failed to pass constitutional amendments. So, but at least this code of conduct, in terms of making sure that we pass a new law, that will make it possible that when public officers declare their assets, they will be published so that we all can scrutinize and the rest. It's likely to be done. So my point is that because we kept the conversation, this is a conversation that is over 20 years old. Finally, we are almost there. So sometimes people will say, oh, you just come and talk on radio, it won't happen. No, finally it's going to happen. That conversation is over 20 years. When you Google, if you like, viewers and listeners, just Google Code of Conduct. You see Dr. Kojo Asante, CDD. Yeah. See 2004, there about 2005, 2006. CDD did a lot of work on it. Mary Awelana Ada, GII, all the other people. So Kwesi Prempeh, you see, so this is a conversation that we've been having for over 20 years. But finally, it's going to happen. You see. So let's continue. So I'm for OSP going on. If it doesn't go well, appeal. Let's keep the conversation going.
People have talked about the way he carries out things. I don't know how he was invited in this matter, but people think that a civil invitation to the man to come to the office for a conversation or investigation would have been better. Now the man is standing an election, Rambo style arrest, etc. People think that the optics are not really good, so maybe the special prosecutor in this modern day should refine his ways a bit.
Wow, that is debatable. You know me, as I say, I also criticize him, though I support Mr. Jabin very well. You know, I always criticize him for closing the Dubois Baumia matter. So that's a case I will keep disturbing Mr. Jabin to open it, because as we do Dubois and Baumia, we have to proceed with that case. Once he says there's evidence, we are also saying that there is law to prosecute the case. So you know that I'm not just following him blindly. What I'll say is that, but there have been times too that he's done it very secretively, to the extent that even people like me have been very disappointed. Well, not disappointed. We've been unhappy that the things are happening too quietly. We want to see a bit and get a bit of public disinformation. So let's mention like from Boateng. I'm interested in just the part about when Frimpong Boateng was invited, not the latter issues that have come, because I support Frimpong Boateng, though I know, of course, he's not a saint, and Kisi Jabin has been warning us that, look, we should be careful, we shouldn't consecrate a saint, right? Yes, but I'm interested in the aspect about how the Frimpong Boateng invitation came out. OSP did it secretly, and Frimpong Boateng went and finished before, it was some weeks later, before it came out that he had been invited. So you see, it wasn't in the public domain. Who else? Some of the Madame Dapa invitations too. And then there have been other people. There have been lots of people who have gone to OSPO.
Yeah, quiet.
Yeah, in this current administration and past, lots of people. So this particular one, okay. So based upon this, why not? If people are complaining, I'm sure Mr. Jabin will sit back look at it and see how to maybe ensure that it doesn't happen again the next time.
I see.
Can I say something off the back of what he just said?
Go ahead.
On the 21st of August, on the 23rd of August 2021, I petitioned the special prosecutor.
Okay.
On what?
On the meter, 36 million fraud of metering for a company called, what's this company called again? There is this metering, LNR. I don't know if you've heard it. There was a container of meters that came in, was not to the spec of ECG, and it was in the port, and ECG was asked to clear it, and it sat there, and it became a whole nuisance because it came in through under some mischievous money that were paid around the 20th of December 2016 after election had been lost. Monies were still authorized to be disbursed. You know, those crown people, the one that they said senior minister brought them.
Kroll and
Associates, yes. They did an extensive investigation. For some reason, the investigation they did with all the appendices and the evidence got lost. When the institute, my institute now talked about it, they sent me the documentation. So I printed everything, put a letter on top of it, and petitioned the special prosecutor. 23rd August. I only got a reply from him saying that he has received and he's looking into it. Up to today, nothing. So I'm surprised. How did he get involved in this NEIP thing? Was he petitioned or just on his own?
He doesn't have to be petitioned necessarily.
Okay, so he doesn't have to be petitioned to get involved in something.
With that one, the information coming out, he was petitioned.
Was he petitioned or was he not petitioned?
He was petitioned.
If he was
that's what
petitioned,
came out. Yeah.
How come
Which one? In this particular matter?
Yes,
by the incumbent MP?
The same one, Ayimedu. I don't know who it is, but they mentioned an Ayimedu.
But Ayimedu is a sitting MP.
Well,
it could be him, it could not be him.
If he was petitioned, how come some of us are petitioning him in 2021 and nothing has happened?
But the matters are different.
No, how is it different? I thought it's in order of, I mean, there's the evidence.
There's
evidence to prosecute. We've given you everything.
His friend is here.
Yeah, so what I'm thinking, I'm speak for him, but I'm thinking, send a reminder. You know, in September.
Was there a reminder to this one? Was there a reminder? And another
but what point are you making? That he picks and chooses?
Yes, because Tema Oil Refinery, a private transaction. OSP now writes a letter to stop a private transaction.
But all is a national.
No, my brother. What I'm trying to say is that I am from my Kujopoku's point. My confusion with the special prosecutor is that my institute have petitioned him. We have not seen anything happen on that petition. But there are other things that he's doing in the name of fighting corruption. So what we sent him is not in the name
of... Maybe you said a lot of documents. He may still be studying it.
Studying it, but these ones...
But these ones are easy. They are low-hanging.
Come on, man. But mine is not. When somebody has done all the investigation for you, Kroll has done all the investigation for you, it's not a low-hanging fruit. Established, giving you the person, his roommates in London, those that he used, account number the money was moved into, the trail of the money, investigation has been done for you. We've handed you the evidence. Nothing till today.
But he has to study the
No, but I'm saying 2 years.
So at least.
Why isn't this thing, and why isn't this man's own NEIP taking 2 years for him to? Why does he just invite him and arrest him?
Maybe it's a simple case, isn't
but
it?
okay, so he was petitioned.
And you don't know whether people have been invited.
Let me land. He was petitioned and immediately invited the person and arrested the person. Why hasn't, when I petitioned him on my thing, why hasn't he invited the people and arrested them subject to further investigation?
But like Martin just said, I mean, sometimes he does sit on the quiet. So
but nothing has happened. I'm telling you, nothing has happened. Because I have read the document. I have read the document. I know the person who was indicted in a Kroll investigation. That person is still working free and talking every day.
But you don't know whether that person
he has not been invited. I'm telling you, but I have my ears to the ground. You think if
officially,
no, but officially what I'm saying is that my brother here is saying that I should remind
or inquire what is happening on the matter.
Because you see, you're not getting the point I'm making.
That he's picking and choosing.
Yes,
that
he's picking and choosing what he publicly comes out to do. Because if somebody is standing election, and even when Martin is saying the law is not too clear on jurisdiction. But my problem is not even on the jurisdiction. My problem is the evidence to prosecute. He himself came out and said that anytime he's going to court, the court is frustrating him. He's not a law unto himself. He needs to have evidence to prosecute in court. So when his frustration is that he's going to court and losing cases in court. And he's frustrated.
So it's your point. So
my point is that once that we have given him all the evidence,
and he's not done it,
he has not done anything about it. Meanwhile, there's one that he's even questioned on jurisdiction.
But he may not hold Martin's view. He may think that he has jurisdiction.
Well, that's fine. But the one that we gave him, Instep gave him, he has jurisdiction. We petitioned him. Nothing has happened.
So that's fine. We'll probe that. But are you saying that because he has not done yours, he shouldn't do this one too?
No, I'm not saying that. But I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that I am beginning with a lot of things coming up recently on the special prosecutor, with the Tor matter, with this matter, with other matters that we see him do. My question on this program is that what is his modus operandi? Is it by petition? Is it by just him sitting there and seeing that, oh, something is going wrong here, I'm going to do it? And if it's by petition, is there an order? Who came first in, first out? Or some petitions are more better than the other? Because mine is a loss to the state of $36 million.
Oh, we finished. Please give me.
I'll give you the documents right now.
Yes.
You understand? So that is the confusion here. What is modus operandi?
Yeah. So Martin, is it in first come first, guest response fashion, like he's asking, or he decides how he goes about it? You know, not his friend necessarily.
It's not something I've seen in the law. So maybe administratively we can ask Mr. Kojo Poku can. That's why I say you should write to him. And you know the good thing, Salom, is that first until about September, the man had a staff strength of no more than 13.
Yeah, and he just got about 240.
Yes, and that's even the official thing, that 249 or so. But we don't even know the number that reported. So even let's say...
Do you want me to tell you a story? When I first wrote to him, he said he didn't have letterheads. So I should wait. When he got they said he didn't have letterheads. I said, okay, fine. That time he was in the cantonment office.
Okay.
Now, I got a reply with a very fine, shiny letterhead. So I realized that he's gotten letterheads.
Yes.
Because he wrote to me to tell me
he's working progress.
in 2 years.
So the numbers in
2 years.
So
that is why I'm saying that he's gotten people.
So now he's
gotten motion. I have asked, you see, this thing.
Good, let me mention this.
Okay, so this one that you are saying I should ask reminder. I have gone through channels to find out that and everybody says, oh, send me to me, I will remind him. I've sent him to several people. Still nothing.
Nice.
So I'll send it to you again.
Yeah, you can trust me that every week I'll mention
because
it.
That LNR was $36 million.
Because that's a lot of money. But look at this man, so Chairman Wuntumi, the Galamsey matter. So it's with him. He hasn't
done anything.
Wuntumi is a public figure, but it hasn't gone ahead of yours. So let's give a bit. Let's make emphasis.
So it could mean that there are more issues.
I've heard of other cases.
So if there are other cases, why are some of these ones getting fresh cases?
Just
getting
remember
much
that
more because the tall one I mentioned. Right, recently, as last week, he wrote another letter to Temaoyo Refinery to ask for the. So, meanwhile, there are some cases that he seems to be more interested in writing letters.
No, yours, you gave all the documents. So you said you gave a big pile.
Yeah,
so there wasn't much.
In 2 years, nothing has happened.
No, he just got the staff in September. I think
last year.
Look, I would volunteer to ask for it. Let's go.
He just follows it.
Okay. So now on the topic at hand, I think that is a good thing because, as my brother rightfully said, we need to up the bar in terms of what people think they can get away with. Code of conduct has been something that everybody has been talking about. I have a friend whose in-law became a governor in Nigeria. He was very excited to take a position. The brother-in-law gave him the code of conduct. Go and read, and tomorrow come and let's discuss the position you want. The following day, the in-law came and said, in-law, thank you, I don't want any position. Because the code of conduct is very strict. And I think we need that in Ghana. So it's a good thing that we've gotten to the point where we're going to get code of conduct. But we should be careful. You see, this particular case with the INI IP man, I don't know the evidence he has. He's been petitioned and he's investigating. I would have thought, as my brother said, that he would have privately invited him and bailed him further to investigation. But when you publicly now make these grandiose announcements and arrests...
But we don't also know that, or whether he was invited, quietly for a number of times and he refused to turn up. We don't also know
what happened mainly was when he wanted to pick some documents up from the office, the style in which they went there. They went there in a Rambo style. And that is
maybe
what
he's been
caused-
invited many
that is
times
what, no,
and he's not.
the invitation is gone. I mean, he's there. But if you want to go and pick documents from his office, do it in a quiet. I'll ask for the documents.
Okay, so there's
ask him for
also
documents.
the
and let
OSP
him bring
wanted
it.
documents
Yes.
from that particular office.
Yeah, from his office. So if you want documents, ask for it and let him bring. But you don't rush there as
Hey,
if they are
you should
hiding
ask
something.
for. No, if you say
You can ask for him
sometimes-
for documents. Then you
sometimes
can let
you
someone
can
go
lose
with him.
Documents
He has
can be
the
thrown.
authority to let someone go with him to
Yeah.
go and pick the documents up.
Yes.
So he can't go and hide or burn any documents. But if you go there in a Rambo style, and if you are going there and you rush
Now,
it,
what does
and
Rambo,
they know where
what
the
does Rambo
document,
style mean?
you know,
Gun blazing.
that gang type
But-
of thing.
No, but
I
they just
mean,
went there, and we don't
it's
know
not just
who made it
right.
public or who
It's
publicized
the people at the office. Because of the way
and
they
the people
saw
at the
them
office
coming
may be
in.
his supporters, and so once they see that OSP people are
Once
they will
you
raise
come
that up.
in, once you come in a style that is not.
But we don't know.
I
We
mean,
don't know that they just came in.
And that's
the
what
car,
I'm telling
said
you.
they wanted
that
to see this
the
person
people
and all that.
there, no, they didn't just come in a car and said, "I want to see this person." The way they drove in with all the, you know,
The armor cars
Yeah.
that he's bought.
it makes it the armor
But
cars.
the armor,
It's a
if
special
they
use,
had,
a
it's
special use.
important because corruption is a very
Let's not
dangerous
go there.
enterprise.
Please,
You will need that.
Please. Don't justify
Let's
some
not
and
go
leave
there.
some out.
Let's
No,
not,
but now-
let's not start that
no,
conversation.
the
please.
person of the
armor
special
car for a
prosecutor-
special prosecutor.
Hey.
please.
No, the person of the person
Let's not
is
start,
not
please.
on, it's
Let's
not,
not
it's
start
not,
that
it's
one.
not up for discussion anyway.
Let's not
But
start that
if you look at how the corruption thing is, it is not out of place for him to want extra
In
security
Ghana.
for himself.
Yes, extra security are not the problem.
Yeah, but I mean, in the
no,
form of
hold on.
the-
The Attorney General. The Attorney General is here. The
Chief Justice is
Justice is there. The CID. No, not
What
CID.
corruption
Hold
does
on,
Attorney
the-
General
the- what do you call it? Hold on,
No, but he's dealing with
police,
the corruption,
the
IGP,
BNI.
the IGP, the
He's
National
dealing-
Security Chief.
No, you see, these guys are they work in the system.
Like
Yes.
officer.
But this guy, he's the
I
he's
The
think
the,
doesn't go
he's
to
the
court.
arrowhead.
The Yoko boss is there, right? Yoko boss is there. Doesn't investigate.
But the
similar-
office, the special prosecutor is more involved in the day-to-day.
Oh,
Yeah,
my brother,
investigation
what
of
we are
corruption.
saying
Yes.
is that
That's
the
all these
special
people.
prosecutor
Yes.
investigates certain things. Yoko boss investigates
All
certain
these
things.
bodies have been there, right?
Yeah.
Right, but the
But
point is that
is it
have
not
you
the
heard
office of the
any,
special
have you
prosecutor
heard of
making on
any
the news these
assassination
days?
attempt on any of these people?
No, we don't know what
Size.
will happen. But
On who?
OSP.
But it
No,
doesn't
Mr.
get
I'm
Yabe.
not talking about OSP. My brother.
Assassination
No, but
attempt.
if it has happened,
Where?
if it
Yeah,
has,
I have
where?
five.
if it has happened
hear?
before,
Yeah, my brother.
You
let's
know
move
the
on.
things
Let's
we
move
all
on.
You see,
Listen.
we all
You
hear
know what
things,
the policeman
it's
told
not
me?
no, we don't have to
You
wait
know
for
what
it to
the
happen
policeman told me.
before
So
we say he
policeman
needed
said
a
that master,
car.
we both be at rock. Police phone they be a dry boy. Master.
So this one is to kill him
No,
because
I'm not
because
saying
you
that.
kill him.
I'm not saying that.
Okay,
Look,
since it's not the
we
topic.
live in a country where I am saying that let's not start that conversation about Amok.
Very well, very well. Let's go to Franklin. I know Franklin's been listening quietly. Franklin,
Oh, I haven't come in here too.
No, of course, Abi. Franklin, I mean, if you are there, I don't know what you make of the whole arrest of the gentleman. The claim is that he was using NEIP money for his private campaign, etc. You know, Martin is there with the legalities about whether the OSP by law can do that or not. What do you think that the socials will be? I mean, running an election, he's faced this. Does it go to help him? Won't it disadvantage him in any way? Couldn't the OSP have done it in a better way that will not disadvantage the person because he is innocent or presumed innocent until proven guilty?
Well, it's unfortunate though. But what I want to find out really is, did the OSP say that he suspects that he's using NEIP funds to
Yeah, I think
fund
that
this
also
election?
came. The OSP hasn't officially made, but that came up also in the discussion. So we were looking at all of that, you know,
At this stage, it's about probably paying people that are likely to vote in an election. And so probably need to know the source of that income. And I think that's where we should leave it at. Because I'm not too sure about this whole charge about using public funds. If it is the case that we want to deal with campaign finance, which is a very important matter, by the way, do that. But I think we should be cautious how we all of a sudden suggest that maybe he's used public funds. That I'm not too sure of. But if it's the case that someone has lodged a complaint that the gentleman involved has been sending money to persons, well, because it's an election, yes, maybe the OSP is within his right to do so. But I'm not too sure that we should cut that right now and say categorically that he has used an EIP fund. I think those matters would have to be determined. But I think clearly, for me, this issue about campaign finance is a much bigger issue that we need to deal with, really. And I think the incidents like this gives us opportunity to reflect and see what we can possibly do about it. It's a real problem, but it's quite unfortunate. And I think that the OSP, by the way, you see, I think the OSP should not be the being and all of all issues related to corruption or acts of corruption. It looks to me that he's becoming overwhelmed, really. I mean, these simple matters could be reported to the police or something like that. Maybe, well, Yoko and the rest. But anyway, I suspect everybody wants the OSP to be efficient, and so maybe this is why we are doing this.
Perhaps it also speaks to how people, the fact that they trust his office, they feel that he's effective, because the police, I mean, the CID has been there forever, and
to be fair,
people
the OSP does not necessarily need to have eventual results to be effective. The fact that he's seen in the act of trying to do something in itself is work. So somehow I also do not necessarily want to be hard on him to show results right now, except that he has to be seen to be a bit more fair and probably a bit more, the word professional has been called into question again about how he does some of these things. I'm not too sure this warranted the kind of arrest style, if it indeed does what really happened. I'm not too sure it does. But in any case, I will not fault him for not necessarily returning any real success right now, except to say that we live in a country that is very, there's a lot of hearsay. And so you need to be very cocksure before you actually accuse someone of doing something untoward, especially in this case where it involves public money.
Very well. So Alfred, how much do you know about this, and you think the Office of the Special Prosecutor is doing a great job?
With his office, definitely he has to work hard, and definitely people will have to hear about him. I mean, once he's doing something. But when you come into my circles, people feel that there are so many things that he should have been working on, and he's like targeting government officials more than any other thing. So it brings the what my brother is saying.
That's his job.
That's where the responsibility.
No, you see, but there are other things that let us hear what is going on. Like what Kojo just said.
Like what? Okay.
That, I mean, he's written to him since 2021.
2021.
And he hasn't responded.
But he replied in
you see,
August.
Now, this guy that you are going after only made his mind in early December when I was even speaking to him. He said he didn't want to go for the elections because the album was tainted. The sitting MP has skewed it towards his people. And so he didn't even trust in the album. So anything that he's done or any help he's given to people, he's given to them on a job that he's doing, that people have applied for. And definitely, once you're coming from a place, people will apply. I mean, you know what NEIP does. They've done over some presidential pitch, about 30 finalists were there. They've trained over 25,000 people in innovative agricultural practices. He's done 10,000 youth and trained in business development in partnership with YEA. So many other things that he's done. Trained 10,000 people in light manufacturing. Even when you go to the prisons, they are training people at the prisons to do light manufacturing. So it tells you that he's working. So if anyone associates him that from the 27th when he decided to, okay, let me pick a form and go and contest, to date, that he's giving someone something. I mean, you ask yourself, what is really going on? And this thing, I was glad that earlier on Kojo mentioned it, this logistics and vote buying. We should be very careful about what we call vote buying and what we give to people that, listen, Christmas, I can decide that people in my constituency, they are working hard. I decide to buy them Christmas presents. Is it vote buying? You see, so we should be very careful. The mere fact that maybe I'm going for an election doesn't mean that because I give them something already, I shouldn't give them.
But the timing of that is important, isn't it?
That is why I said the mere fact that I'm going for an election doesn't mean that because I give them something already, because I'm going for an election, I shouldn't give them. People give people gifts. That doesn't mean that they are buying their votes. So we should be extra cautious. And it comes to this thing that Franklin himself is saying that, listen, we should see how political parties are being funded and all these things. We should sit down and look at it holistically and say that, listen, either political parties will be funded, because very soon we'll be sitting down and anyone from anywhere can come and decide that, listen, I've got some monies and I want to stand for president, or I want to stand for MP, or I want to stand for anything. You don't know where the money is coming from. And people are not questioning about that. They are source of funding. Where your money is coming from for you to even go and stand for anything.
That's what OSP is trying to do.
Is that what he's really trying to do? Or someone reported him that, listen,
yes, so
he's using his office money to fund or give
that's the source.
Christmas
that's
gifts.
Checking the source.
that is why I said that when going for the documents, be careful how you go about it.
Yeah.
Because you let people talk. This thing could have been done quietly and no one would even hear about it. But the way and manner in which you approach some of these things, the people out there will start talking. And
Very
it will let us come and discuss this when we can do other things that will bring money on the table for Martin Pebo and his OSP.
People are
Very
angry.
well. So
Citizens
Martin,
are
just
angry.
5 seconds on
Yes.
on the way forward.
Yeah,
Just 5
so
seconds,
so by all means, let the investigations go on, and then let the case go to court so that we'll see. And then let me clarify something. Frankly, the time we're discussing, so it's good you raised that point. We are so far not talking about the source of the money, right? That means Cancer was sending to the delegates. We are talking about the fact of what? Bribery in party primaries. Is it a crime? Is it an electoral offense? That's what we are discussing. Yes, so it will be both, because he does corruption and then public elections too. Yes,
Very well.
also bribery.
Very well. Thanks so much.
Bribery in public elections.
Thanks so much.
That's it.
A few of your comments before we go. Exactly. No matter how much tax we collect, if we continue to pour it into leaking pot, we are going nowhere. Harold sent that in. Kojo Fuku is just making MPP propaganda. That's Kojo in La Paz. Do our leaders sincerely believe Ghana can be prosperous? I do not think so, because they do not do things that suggest so. That's Kipo in the Savannah region. Good morning to you and your panelists. Nanado Mbamega hasn't added 0 megawatt to our power capacity yet. Claim Mahama didn't address the power challenge. That's Michael Abori from being Duri. Politicians are not perfect, but I can say Mahama is better than Akufo-Addo, and that's from Zalib Dwayne in London. All right, so this is how we conclude today's edition of the program. My name is Selam Adunu. My guests have been Kojo Poku, Executive Director, Institute of Energy Policies and Research. Earlier I heard Edward Bawa, MP for Bongo. Alfred Thompson, who is just asking for 1 minute, member of the MPP Communications team and former Deputy MD NIB. Earlier I also heard Francis Boy, Timor, tax consultant, and Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa. Again, my name is Selam Adunu. Thanks so much for being with us. Catch you same time again next week. Have a good afternoon.